Marineford is burning. The sky is split by thunder, magma, and screams. But this time, the figure rocketing above the execution platform isn't a straw-hatted captain. It's a rubber-bodied Nami, slingshotting herself between battleships, her arms whipping across the bay as she grabs cannonballs mid-air and hurls them back like meteors. Lightning crashes. But it doesn't hit her. She calls it, redirects it, a storm goddess made of rubber bouncing off Kizaru's lasers, stretching across the plaza to yank Ace out of danger in one desperate, calculated swing. Sengoku shouts new orders. The Marines aren't just watching a reckless pirate anymore. They're watching a living natural disaster who can literally bend the battlefield around her. And then, hard cut. No Marineford, no war. Just the quiet waves of East Blue, Fuchsia Village's tiny pier, and a single devil fruit sitting on a barrel. In the original timeline, Luffy takes that bite, laughs, and instantly becomes the rubber boy who will shake the world. But what if that never happened? What if the Gomu Gomu no Mi ends up in Nami's hands instead, long before she ever meets the Straw Hats? Suddenly, the world's most chaotic power belongs to a calculating navigator obsessed with survival and money. No, I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Speech. No charging in head first. You see, this Nami runs numbers, not just into enemies. She measures wind, current, and bounty posters, and then weaponizes a rubber body the way other people weaponize cannons. Picture Arlong Park in this timeline. Arlong throws her into a wall, and she just bends, rebounds, and slams him through his own fortress. I'm bouncing him from tower to tower like a living pinball. Imagine a rubber thief sneaking onto Shanks's ship, stretching her fingers under locked doors to steal maps and treasure right from under the red-haired pirates' noses. At Eni's lobby, the human weapon the world government fears isn't a rubber captain punching a celestial dragon years later, but a strategist who awakens Nika's power mid-buster call, turning the whole island into her personal weather war playground. And at Marineford? We're not talking about a desperate rookie begging for help. We're talking about a rubber storm goddess who calculates tidal waves, lightning strikes, and artillery angles in real time, rewriting the outcome of the war with every stretch. Here's the kicker. If the most dangerous rubber human is a genius navigator, not a reckless captain, then the balance of power from East Blue to the final war is instantly different. Who gets hunted first? Who gets protected? Do the Yonko recruit her, or does the world government erase her before she ever reaches Sabaody? In this video, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to reconstruct the entire timeline, from Fuchsia Village to Arlong Park, from Alabasta to Enia's lobby, all the way back to that burning Marineford sky, and track how every iconic moment changes around one stolen bite of fruit. What alliances break? Which legends never rise? And what does the age of pirates look like when the world's rubber legend is Nami? So before we start slingshotting Nami across the Grand Line, we need to lock in the rules of this new reality. What exactly are we changing? And what stays anchored to canon so the whole story doesn't just melt into chaos? In the original timeline, that fateful bite happens in Fuchsia Village. Shanks's crew brings the Gomu Gomu no Mi into Makino's bar. Luffy snacks on it like it's dessert, and destiny is sealed. But what if that one moment is where the universe blinks? In this timeline, Nami is the one who ends up eating the fruit early in her life, and we follow how that single decision rewires everything. From her childhood under Arlong to the final war against the world government. Here's the kicker. We're not throwing away their personalities. Luffy is still reckless, Ace is still loyal, Nami is still money-hungry, traumatized, and obsessed with maps and freedom. The difference is opportunity. Nami now has a rubber body, immunity to blunt force, and insane elasticity. But she's also a navigator who hates unnecessary risk and understands the ocean better than almost anyone. How does a devil fruit that makes you weak to seawater look in the hands of the one person who calculates every current, every storm, every escape route? We're going to track this timeline from before East Blue really begins. We'll start with Nami's childhood under Arlong, then move through the classic East Blue lineup, Buggy, Kuro, Don Krieg, into Arlong Park with a rubber wildcard on the board. From there, we push straight into the Grand Line, Whiskey Peak, Alabasta, Skypiea, Water 7, Enies Lobby, and yes, all the way to a Marineford-style climax and the post-war balance of power. At every stage, we'll ask, how does the world react when the most ridiculous power belongs to a genius navigator instead of a battle junkie captain? Non-narrative rule number 2. Power doesn't erase trauma, it reframes it. Nami still wants 100 million berries to free Kokoyasi village. She still hates Arlong, she still lies, steals, and manipulates to survive. But with rubber powers, does Arlong Park even last long enough for Luffy to become her savior? Or does she become her own legend, forcing the Marines and the world government to notice a rubber girl in East Blue long before the Straw Hats ever fly a flag together? And that leads to the big macro questions. Who becomes captain when Luffy never gets the fruit? Does he still inspire everyone with sheer will? Or does a rubber Nami accidentally become the symbol of the crew? Does her intellect let her tap into Nika's awakening earlier, turning battles into calculated cartoons instead of chaotic brawls? And if the world government has already seen what a rubber human can do at Marineford, how terrified are they when reports of a second one suddenly surface? Let's dive into this arc by arc, constantly bouncing between in the original timeline and in this timeline. And at key moments, we'll branch off multiple routes. One where Nami plays it safe, one where she gambles everything, and one where the drums of liberation start beating far, far too early. Up to this point, we've been teasing how wild things get when Nami becomes the rubber anomaly. But to really feel the impact, we need to lock in the baseline. Because in the original timeline, every major domino in One Piece falls because one kid in Fuchsia Village took a bite he wasn't supposed to. As Shanks rolls into Fuchsia with a simple cargo job, a strange devil fruit the world government desperately wants back. The Gomu Gomu no Mi just sits there in a chest, mysterious, unassuming, while the red hair pirates drink and laugh. Then Luffy, impatient and hungry, takes one impulsive bite. Instantly, his body becomes rubber, his dreams become louder, and his identity locks in. The smiling fool who can laugh in the face of danger because bullets literally bounce off his skin. That one accident defines all of East Blue. Luffy tanks pistol shots in the bar like it's nothing. He ricochets himself across ships, slingshots into enemy lines, and fights with raw, straightforward brawling. No complex strategy, no grand tactics. Just Gomu Gomu no pistol, bazooka, and Gatling thrown with insane conviction. Buggy's chop-chop tricks? Overwhelmed. Kuro's speed and claws shut down by rubber durability. Don Krieg's arsenal smashed through by sheer impact. And Arlong, the monster who broke Nami, gets beaten into the ocean because a rubber human can dive into a saw shark head-on and keep swinging. Let's dive into the Grand Line, where that rubber body stops being a gag and starts becoming a world-class problem. Against Crocodile, Luffy's resilience and insane stamina let him keep coming back from lethal hits until he figures out how to land soaked punches that can actually touch sand. Against Enel, the whole arc only works because lightning, the god's ultimate weapon, does nothing to rubber. Luffy becomes the natural enemy of the so-called god, and Skypiea is saved because of that joke fruit. Then Enies Lobby hits. And here's the kicker. Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd transform Luffy from tough rookie into a nightmare for the world government. He compresses and pumps his rubber body, boosting speed and strength to blitz Lucci's Rokushiki, smashing through Tekai and shaving techniques that should outclass him. From that point on, every arc treats Luffy's evolving rubber techniques as a rising threat level the Marines cannot ignore. And finally, Marineford. The war where a rubber Luffy barely survives anything through sheer will and plot armor. He charges through admirals, warlords, and vice admirals, his body getting shattered, frozen, poisoned, burned, but always stretching forward toward Ace. Everyone sees it. This isn't just any pirate kid. This is Dragon's son, a D-bearer with a devil fruit the world doesn't yet understand. All crashing the stage of legends. You see, up to this point, everything in the original timeline depends on Luffy being that rubber wildcard. So when we rip the Gomu Gomu no Mi out of his hands and put it in Nami's, every single one of these scenes becomes a pressure point, and the entire story starts to bend. But what if the first person to stretch wasn't Luffy at all? So if Luffy isn't the first one to stretch, who is? You see, there are two clean ways this what-if could branch. Either little Nami, the Orangetown pickpocket, crosses paths with Shank's crew and swipes the fruit before Luffy ever sees it, or the real twist hits years later under Arlong's flag, when Nami is already a professional thief working in chains. In the original timeline, that Fuchsia village scene is quiet, almost goofy. Luffy bites the fruit by accident. Shanks laughs, the bar is calm, and destiny slips in like a joke that turns serious later. But what if we throw that away and lock in the darker route? In this timeline, we're choosing the Arlong-era divergence. No cozy bar, no carefree kid, just blood, debt, and a girl who's already sold her soul to save her village. Context first. Nami is still raiding ships, stealing money and maps to hit that 100 million belly goal. Arlong is still using her as a tool, parading her talent while holding Kokoyasi hostage. Everything looks the same from the outside. Then the shipment arrives. A heavily guarded black market crate, whispered about among the fishmen as special cargo from some shady broker tied to the underworld and the world government's own devil fruit pipeline. In the original timeline, Nami only steals treasure. She's fragile, sneaky, relying on stealth, lies, and a tangerine smile to survive beatings she can't actually endure. But in this timeline, she cracks open that crate during one of her solo heists, expecting gold or weapons, and finds a weird purple fruit with swirls. She doesn't know it's the Gomu Gomu no Mi. She just knows anything this protected has to be worth a fortune. Then it goes wrong. A patrol doubles back early. A fishman officer spots the open crate. Nami is cornered in a dead-end storeroom. Seawater dripping through the planks, no exits, no allies, just Arlong's wrath waiting if she's caught stealing from his investment. So she makes a call Luffy never did, a calculated survival move. She eats the fruit on purpose. The taste is awful. The timing is perfect. As the guard swings a club that should shatter her ribs, her body bends, absorbs, and slingshots him into the wall. Instantly, the rules of her life are rewritten. She's not just a thief anymore, she's a rubber-bodied weapon hiding in plain sight. Now the contrast is wild. Instead of a captain who rushes in, we get a navigator who can squeeze through cracks, flatten under doors, and bounce silently across Arlong Park's rooftops. Every beating becomes intel, every punishment a test of her new limits. She can survive what used to break her. And here's the kicker. Arlong has no idea. His prized human cartographer, the girl he thinks he owns, is now bonded to the very devil fruit he was smuggling to strengthen his empire. The weapon that will one day destroy his rule is literally working overtime on his payroll. For the first time, Nami feels it. She doesn't have to run forever. She can fight. So what happens when a genius navigator starts planning not an escape, but a rebellion built around rubber? And then reality hits her like a tidal wave. She can't swim. She's under Arlong's flag, and the girl who already hated the ocean is now chained to it as a devil fruit user. That is horror. Every splash against the hull is a threat. Every storm on the horizon is a death sentence. But what if, right there in that panic, Nami also notices something else? Her bruises don't feel the same. Blows sink in and bounce off. Her fingers stretch a little too far when she reaches. Instantly, curiosity slips in beside fear. In the original timeline, Luffy treats his rubber body like a toy, a playground. In this timeline, Nami treats it like a weapon she has to audit. Late at night, when everyone's asleep, now she turns her own body into a science project. She hooks a measuring line to the mast, stretches her arm out, and notes the exact distance in a stolen logbook. 2 meters. 3. 5. How long until the recoil whiplashes her shoulder? How much force does a snapped-back fist generate against a wooden crate? You see, she doesn't just throw punches. She records impact dents, sketches angles, and marks pain thresholds with little symbols. A navigator's precision, now applied to her own anatomy. And here's the kicker. She weaponizes subtlety before she ever thinks about flashy attacks. While Arlong's crew laughs about their useless human cartographer, her hands are already slipping through barred windows from across the room. A lazy stretch under a table becomes a silent key swipe. An absent-minded yawn masks a rubbery arm curving around a corner to lift a pouch of berry no one saw her touch. She can pick a lock from 10 meters away and still look bored at her desk. Everyone thinks Nami is still the same desperate servant stacking treasure for Arlong's dream. But what if the treasure is now getting skimmed at rubber range? Tiny amounts missing here and there, funneled into hidden stashes, all calculated against the exact price of Kokoyashi Village's freedom. This is the emotional twist that changes everything. Luffy wants adventure, the Pirate King title, the open sky. Nami wants a receipt. She wants an invoice stamped "paid" over Arlong Park. The Gomu Gomu no Mi isn't a symbol of freedom to her yet. It's a high-risk investment in a financial war. On every stretch is a calculation. Is this berry worth the danger of being found out? Is this heist one step closer to buying her people back? And while she's juggling terror and accounting, she's also doing what she does best: math. She starts charting her own body like a sea route. If she falls from the crow's nest, how much can she stretch to reduce impact? If she slingshots herself between masts, what's the safest angle to avoid snapping a limb? She bounces a stone off the wall, tracks its path, then mimics that curve with her fist. Trajectories, ricochets, safe fall distances. She's building gears without calling them that. Proto-techniques based on numbers, not madness. And as she refines them in secret, you can feel it coming. The moment when this quiet rubber rebellion stops hiding in the shadows and slams into Arlong's jaw. Let's dive into how that first open clash reshapes all of East Blue. But while Nami's rubber revolution is charging up in the shadows, there's a silent casualty in this timeline. The legend of the rubber boy never happens. No cannonball-eating moron, no human slingshot. So what does Luffy look like without the gum-gum fruit? He's still Luffy. He still stares at the sea from Fuchsia Village, still worships Shanks, still wants a crew and the One Piece. But without that goofy rubber body, his superpower shifts. In the original timeline, the fruit gives him instant spectacle. In this timeline, it's raw hockey potential and brutal hand-to-hand training with bandits and mountain beasts. You see him throwing himself at bears, at boulders, at anything that hits back, chasing that same thrill of invincibility he never actually got. So when he sets out, he's not a cartoon. He's a brawler with scary instincts. No pistol punches, but sharp, clean strikes, improvised weapons, and flashes of unconscious conqueror's hockey when his friends are threatened. And that changes every early fight. How does non-rubber Luffy handle Alvida? He can't just let her mace bounce off his face. He has to dodge, weave, crack her armor at the joints, and trust hockey-coated blows to stagger her. Suddenly, he needs Kobe to distract the crew, needs positioning, needs tactics. With Morgan, it's the same pattern. In the original timeline, Luffy tanks bullets like a gag. Here, he can't. So he uses speed, jumps behind the execution platform, disarms Morgan with a staff or stolen rifle butt, and you instantly feel the difference. His victories look earned, not gifted by a devil fruit. Or then there's Buggy. This is where it really snaps. No rubber means Buggy's chop-chop advantage is terrifying in close range. Luffy has to read the fight like a future pirate king, targeting the feet, the ground, the environment, using hockey pressure to keep Buggy's pieces from swarming his allies. He wins, but it's messy, and everyone watching isn't going, "What is that fruit?" They're going, "Who fights like that?" Which leads us to Zoro. Would he still follow this guy? Without the walking miracle factor, Zoro doesn't just see a rubber freak who shrugs off death. He sees a captain who bleeds, gets back up, and still laughs in a Marine's face. But what if that's not enough? In this timeline, Luffy has to prove leadership with decisions. Cutting Zoro down from the cross, yes, but also planning the escape route, calling shots mid-battle, and trusting Zoro with real responsibility instead of just chaos. Here's the kicker. While all this is happening, rumors are spreading of a different miracle. Not a rubber boy, but a rubber thief. A girl who stretches across rooftops, slips through bars, ricochets off walls with impossible angles, and robs pirates blind. Luffy hears that before he ever sees Nami. So when they finally meet, the power dynamic flips. He's the reckless dreamer. She's the urban legend with the impossible body. And that sets up the looming choice for the future crew. In a world where Luffy is strong, but not superhuman, and Nami is the one warping physics, who becomes the center of gravity? Who does Usopp brag about? Who does Sanji orbit? Who does the world government fear first? As East Blue keeps unfolding, you can feel the answer tilting away from the straw-hatted brawler and toward the rubber navigator rewriting the very idea of what a captain looks like. Let's dive into the moment those two orbits finally collide. Orangetown, Buggy, and the first test of whether this crew even forms at all. Orangetown becomes your first real fork in the road. In the original timeline, Luffy crashes in like a human cannonball and accidentally saves the day. But what if the first act of chaos here isn't a rubber punch? It's a rubber theft? In this timeline, Nami hits Orangetown as a solo rubber thief, already infamous on the small-time piracy circuit. She's bouncing between ships at night, using gum-gum rocket jumps to sling herself from mast to mast while Buggy's crew are too drunk to look up. When Buggy finally rolls out his terrifying Buggy Ball, Nami doesn't run. She plants her feet, stretches her arms, and lets the cannon blast slam into her rubber body. It compresses, warps. Then she ricochets it back into Buggy's own ship like a living slingshot. Suddenly, the Chop Chop Clown's flashy devil fruit is a joke, because every dismembered strike just bounces off her, and every cannonball becomes friendly fire. While everyone's panicking, her arm snakes through the chaos, steals the Grand Line map mid-battle, and she's gone before Buggy can even reassemble. Let's dive into Syrup Village, because this is where the Rubber Witch urban legend really starts. Kuro's whole thing is precision, timetables, clean kills. But how do you plan around a body that literally refuses to break? Nami doesn't just stumble into Usopp's lies, she infiltrates the mansion grounds days early. At night, she lies on a rooftop, ear stretched down the chimney like a rubber microphone, eavesdropping on Kuro and Mary. She maps out every step of the assassination plot. Then, when the Black Cat pirates land, she uses extendable limbs to quietly tie knots in anchor chains, yank ladders away from the cliffs, and yoink weapons out of pirates' hands from impossible angles. Kaya never even has to walk into the battlefield. Nami wraps her from a distance, Gum Gum pulls her to safety, and Kuro's entire plan shatters because his frail targets suddenly have an untouchable rubber guardian. Here's the kicker. By the time Don Krieg's battered fleet crawls into Bharati waters, Nami is already thinking like a naval weapon. Luffy in the original timeline just smashes through armor and ego. In this timeline, Nami turns the whole sea into a battlefield she can calculate. She anchors ropes to masts with her own body, stretching across gaps so allies can sprint over her like a living bridge. She slingshots herself between ships to disable rudders, wraps around Krieg's cannon barrels to bend their trajectories, and redirects explosives right back into clustered hulls. She's a one-woman anti-fleet system, long before she ever touches a climatact or starts weaponizing weather. And this contrast matters. Where Luffy wins by breaking faces, Nami wins by breaking logistics, morale, and information flow. She steals maps from miles away, cuts supply lines in the dark and leaves entire crews firing on each other because they can't track where the next rubber rebound is coming from. That's when the whispers start. Marines and pirates talk about a rubber witch of the East Blue, a thief who can snatch treasure and charts without ever boarding your deck. Bounties don't just see strength, they see reach, intelligence, and humiliation. So what happens when that reputation finally collides with Arlong's territory? And with a very different version of Luffy walking into her storm? That rubber witch rumor? It comes home to roost at Arlong Park. And this is where everything snaps. In the original timeline, Nami is trapped in that same nightmare deal, still drawing maps for the monster who murdered her mother. But what if she was also secretly the most dangerous rubber human in the East Blue, training in the dark while Arlong sleeps? You see, the emotional core doesn't change. She still carves that tattoo into her skin. She still walks the village with blood on her hands, taking their money under Arlong's orders. But in this timeline, every night she walks out past the Tangerine Grove and stretches her arms until the tendons scream, slingshots herself between palm trees, lets Genzo's bullets bounce harmlessly off her stomach just to understand her limits. She's not only saving money, she's calculating overthrow, so when that iconic betrayal hits, it hits harder. Arlong tears up her savings. The sky might as well tear with it. In the original timeline, Nami collapses into the dirt, stabbing her shoulder, screaming for help. Here, she still breaks. She still claws at the tattoo until rubber skin warps and blood beads. But what if the breakdown isn't the end of her agency, it's the trigger, where she looks at the ruins of her dream and decides, no more hiding this fruit. Luffy still arrives, just weaker, slower, without rubber. He's heart and willpower, but not the walking cannonball we know from Marineford. Zoro is half dead from Mihawk. This should be a slaughter. Instead, Nami steps forward like a loaded slingshot. She grabs Luffy by the vest, stretches her arm back across the street, and launches him straight through Arlong's front gate. Instant pattern interrupt. Everyone, including Arlong, realizes she's the real storm. Battlefield control becomes her language. Fishmen rush the villagers. Nami's arms snake across the square, grab 3 people at once, and yank them behind cover before blades land. Zoro needs a vantage point? She plants her feet, stretches both legs like rubber cables up a tower, and then releases. Her catapulting him onto the rooftop, Arlong charges with a tooth saw slash that would bisect a normal human. She lets it land, body rippling like a wave, then rebounds the force back, bouncing him through his own wall. Let's dive into the Jaws scene. Arlong goes for the kill bite. Here's the kicker. She wraps her rubber limbs around his mouth, stretching over those serrated teeth, clamping his jaws shut like a living muzzle. He can't believe a mere human is tanking his greatest weapon. She just smiles through the blood and says this village isn't his ocean anymore. And then we reach the room. In the original timeline, Luffy destroys the map room for her. But in this timeline, she walks in herself. Hands shaking, memories flooding. She stretches her fingers back until they creak and unleashes a barrage of rubber fists, shredding charts, smashing desks, ripping down every line that measured her prison. The villagers watch from below as paper rains like confetti, as the girl who once sold their hope becomes the pirate who physically erases her chains. That's the birth of a different legend. Not just a navigator who was freed, but a rubber storm who chose to break her own world. So what happens when that Nami aims her sights beyond Arlong and into the Grand Line's crosshairs? Who wears the hat now? Leadership and the new straw hat power structure. And here's where everything gets messy in the best way. Because once Arlong Park falls in a single night of rubber shockwaves and precision, everyone in Kokoyashi doesn't just see Luffy's crew. They see Nami. In the original timeline, she's the girl who was saved, the navigator behind the grinning captain. But in this timeline, the villagers watched a rubber storm tear down their god. The Marines that show up later, the bounty posters that circulate through East Blue, they all tell the same story. The miracle liberator was the orange-haired rubber witch, not the straw-hatted rookie at her side. Suddenly, external perception shifts. When people say, "Take me to your leader," their eyes go straight to Nami. So what does that do to Luffy? You see, his dream doesn't change. He still wants to be Pirate King. He still introduces himself as captain without a hint of doubt. But what if, for the first time, he's sailing with someone whose devil fruit screams main character to the rest of the world? Luffy isn't the obvious strategic asset anymore. Nami is the one who can tank bullets, slingshot across ships, and literally reshape battlefields with rubber and weather tech. Luffy's answer? He doubles down on charisma, on willpower, on making decisions that only a lunatic captain would make, like charging a marine base head-on because Nami will handle the cannons, I'll punch the boss. Here's the kicker. Zoro sees all of this way clearer than either of them. In the original timeline, his loyalty locks onto Luffy because of that raw, overwhelming resolve. In this timeline, he watches Nami call the shots mid-fight, calculate enemy ranges, stretch herself into vantage points, and turn chaos into a plan. Luffy is still the heart charging forward, but Nami becomes the brain steering the blade. Zoro's loyalty calculus shifts into something new, a dual-core system. Captain and commander. Luffy sets the destination. Now Nami dictates how they survive getting there. But Nami herself? She hates the implication. She doesn't want the hat. She wants money, maps, and safety, not to be the one every desperate village pins their last hope on. Yet every island they hit after Arlong, the pattern repeats. People run to her. Marines target her. Bounty hunters whisper about the rubber girl who erased a fishman tyrant. The world keeps dragging her into the center of the storm, forcing her into more visible, more dangerous roles than any navigator should ever take. And that's exactly where the world government starts to flinch. A rubber human with tactical genius, weather weapons, and a growing legend? That's not just a freak fruit user. That's a potential anomaly. As her bounty spikes, a Cypherpol dossiers start, including one terrifying note. Her powers feel eerily close to an ancient legend they were ordered to erase. So what happens when a crew that was supposed to be a harmless East Blue startup suddenly carries the walking red flag of a forgotten god? Let's dive into how that single perception shift drags the Straw Hats into deeper waters way earlier than Marineford, and why Nami's wanted poster might become the real declaration of war. Weather meets rubber, forging the first Storm Tactician hybrid. And this is where Nami stops being just a rubber anomaly and becomes something the world has literally never prepared for. The first Storm Tactician hybrid. In the original timeline, Usopp built the Climatact to help a human navigator fake weather tricks. But what if, from day one, he's designing a weapon for a living lightning conductor? Usopp isn't just handing her a staff. He's reverse engineering a whole fighting style around a devil fruit body, insulated grips so her rubber hands don't accidentally arc power into the wrong spot, recoil channels that let her stretch an arm, fire a gust shell, and then snap back without dislocating anything. Built-in slingshot grooves that let Nami hook her fingers, pull her own body back like a bowstring, and then launch herself with Usopp's ammo amplifying the shot. You see, in this timeline, every upgrade meeting is a lab session. Sniper and Navigator co-designing a weapon that assumes the user can twist, bend, and tank blunt force like no normal human. Then we hit the lightning synergy, and this is where things get scary. In the original timeline, Nami calls down Thunderbolt tempo and just hopes the enemy is in the blast zone. Here's the kicker. Rubber Nami can stand dead center in that storm. She can grab a Climatact rod, let the bolt slam into her, and then redirect it through a stretched leg as a railgun kick or through a fingertip like a focused laser. She literally becomes a living lightning rod, stepping in front of allies, pulling voltage into herself and grounding it harmlessly or firing it back twice as precise. Imagine Enel's face when his god lightning gets caught, coiled around Nami's arm, and then snapped back at him. Mobility? That gets upgraded too. She slingshots off the deck, then uses wind and pressure shells mid-air to curve her path like a guided missile. One moment she's flying straight. The next, a sudden gust tempo twists her trajectory around an enemy and letting her whip a leg across their back from an impossible angle. Every stretch is now a vector equation. Every jump is a weather calculation. She's not just bouncing around like Luffy, she's plotting artillery arcs with her own body. But what if we zoom out from pure offense and look at support? Storm at sea, mast about to snap, everyone sliding across the deck. Nami plants her feet, stretches her arms around a mast and railing, and turns herself into an elastic anchor, absorbing the ship's violent lurches. Cannonball incoming? She can't block the damage completely, but she can wrap a limb, extend, and take the brunt of the shock, reducing the impact on the hull. During dangerous maneuvers, she fires rubber lines from the railing, giving the crew literal lifelines that yank them back if they fall. And because she's a planner, she doesn't stumble into gears by accident. She writes modes. Storm mode, where she maximizes lightning conduction and high wind mobility. Clear sky recon mode, where she uses long-range stretching and subtle microbursts to scout islands without ever docking. Siege mode, where she hunkers down, anchors the Sunny, and turns herself into a defensive web of rubber and weather traps. Luffy experiments through chaos. Nami weaponizes climate data. So if this is what she can do just by fusing rubber and weather, what happens when the world starts reacting to that power, and the Marines design counters specifically for a storm-made woman? Alabasta under a new sun. Crocodile versus the rubber navigator queen. And nowhere does that storm-made woman terrify the world more than Alabasta. In the original timeline, Crocodile weaponized the desert itself, turning a kingdom into a slow-motion execution. But what if the one wild card he didn't account for wasn't a reckless rubber captain, but a rubber navigator queen who could literally rewrite the sky? Suddenly, the rumors in the underground aren't just about droughts and rebellion. They're about a pirate whose body bounces like rubber and whose storms appear where the Baroque Works map says there should be none. You see, that changes the stakes instantly. Crocodile can't let that exist. A woman who can summon localized rain and ignore the desert's worst terrain is a direct counter to his entire plan. So, wanted posters spread faster, Baroque Works agents get a new priority target, and every town Vivi and the Straw Hats pass through whispers the same thing. If anyone can end the drought, yes, it's the rubber witch of the seas. In this timeline, Nami turns the desert into her personal test lab. She doesn't trudge through sand, she skims it. She flattens her legs into wide rubber treads, bouncing across dunes without sinking, turning quicksand into just another bumpy road. Need to reach the next oasis before the rebels move? She anchors one arm to a rock spire, slingshots herself and an entire rope line of Straw Hats forward, and they're flying between oases like human artillery shells. Let's dive into the confrontations. Remember the sandstorms and ambushes that chipped away at the crew? Now Nami reads the wind shear, pops a heat ball, then a cool ball, and generates tight, surgical rain bursts that slam into Crocodile's sand fronts. His sand blades clump. His sandstorms lose cohesion, even before they meet, and she's quietly degrading his win condition. When they finally clash in Rain Base and later in the tomb, the fight is pure tactics. In the original timeline, Luffy had to discover the blood and water trick through pain. Here's the kicker. Nami walks in already knowing humidity percentages, evaporation rates, and how long it takes for his body to fully dry between attacks. She spikes the air with microbursts of moisture, forces him into denser, heavier sand states, then uses her rubber body to tank blunt sand strikes that would shred a normal human. Meanwhile, the crew becomes a moving weather machine. Nami stretches arms across collapsing dunes to yank Usopp out of quicksand, whips Zoro into ideal angles to intercept agents, and literally passes tools down her own extended limbs. Climatact upgrades, seastone cuffs, and explosives like a living conveyor belt. She's calling rebel movements, predicting Baroque Works routes, and placing each Straw Hat like a chess piece on a map only she can see. Crocodile, arrogant as ever, treats her as support until the sky itself turns against him. The moment he realizes the reign over Alubarna isn't a miracle but a calculation, it's already too late. The cameras of the world see it. Not just Luffy's crew, but Nami personally dismantling a warlord's climate advantage. And that's where her legend really begins. Because once a navigator rewrites a kingdom's weather, the world government can't pretend she's just a background character anymore. Skypiea and the Lightning Paradox, Enel versus the one person he can't fry. And if Alabasta was Nami's coming out party, Skypiea is where the universe itself throws her a challenge. A self-proclaimed god of lightning, against a woman made of rubber who reads the sky like a book. In the original timeline, Luffy was Enel's natural counter. Rubber beats lightning, easy meme. But what if that role is stolen? In this timeline, it's not a goofy captain swinging fists. It's a weather witch with a calculator brain, a climatact, and a body that literally refuses to conduct Enel's divine judgment. Here's the kicker. Enel doesn't just see Nami as an annoyance, he sees her as blasphemy. This is a man whose entire god complex is built on one thing: absolute control of the sky. His mantra hears every heartbeat, his lightning punishes every doubt. And then Nami walks in, shrugs off a direct thunderbolt, and calmly explains the charge separation in his miracles. You see, to Enel, she isn't just immune, she's demystifying him in real time. The battlefield turns insane instantly. Skypiea's cloud seas become a three-dimensional arena. Nami slingshots herself with rubber-stretched legs, bouncing between cloud islands, dials, and sky reefs. She uses updrafts she's already mapped, catches wind currents like invisible highways, and then multiplies that mobility with gum-gum rocket jumps that would make Luffy jealous. Enel's mantra tracks her intent, but her path is pure chaos, calculated chaos, ricocheting at angles that don't match normal human movement. When Raigo forms, this is where the theology shatters. In the original timeline, Luffy just tanks lightning. In this timeline, Nami steps into the heart of that apocalyptic thunderball like it's a lab experiment. She drives a climatact rod straight into the storm, uses her rubber body as a living lightning rod, and redirects the current through herself, harmlessly, into pre-placed cloud channels she's seeded with heat and cool balls. Everyone watches, Skypieans, Shandians. Even Gonfall freezes as this mere human stands wreathed in blinding light and doesn't burn. The message is brutal. God isn't the one throwing lightning. God is the one who understands it. Let's dive into the symbolism for a second. When Nami tears open the cloud deck with a man-made squall, breaking Enel's Raigo apart and clearing the sky over Upper Yard, the people of Skypiea don't just see salvation. They see a navigator proving that knowledge and will can rewrite heaven itself. And divine punishment becomes a weather pattern with equations. And Enel? He's fascinated. Between rage fits, he notices something off. Her body doesn't just stretch, it rebounds with that same cartoonish, joyful elasticity we later associate with Gear 5. Attacks bend reality around her a little too much. Her laughter in the storm feels wrong, ancient. He logs it away. This is no ordinary paramecia. That tiny detail becomes a ticking lore time bomb. Because when the world later starts whispering about a sun god of liberation, there will already be legends in the sky of a rubber woman who humiliated thunder itself. So if Skypiea crowns Nami as the storm thief of heaven, what happens when the world government realizes this navigator might be carrying the very fruit they fear most? At Eni's lobby, with a rubber mastermind, declaring war on the world government. The moment Skypiea's rumors hit the blue sea, the world government connects the dots. A rubber woman who robs gods, bends lightning, and navigates storms, combined with Nico Robin's forbidden knowledge, that's not a pirate crew anymore. That's an extinction-level threat to their entire story of justice. In the original timeline, Eni's lobby is about saving Robin from a fate she's already accepted. But in this timeline, Nami sees the board 10 moves ahead. She knows they won't just erase Robin, they'll erase her. The rubber storm navigator who can literally rewrite battlefields and weather forecasts. You see, that's the kind of wild card the Gorosei lose sleep over. So when Robin is taken, Nami doesn't just chase her. She treats Eni's lobby like a preemptive war for survival. Let's dive into the assault itself. The sea train ride is no longer a desperate sprint. It's a calculated heist on rails. Nami anchors herself to the roof with rubber limbs like living grappling hooks, slingshotting train cars between broken tracks with Gomu Gomu no rocket precision. When a gap appears, she stretches 3 cars back, does the math in a heartbeat, and launches them forward like bullets, chaining momentum so everyone lands clean. One miscalculation, and they all die. She doesn't miss. As they approach the island, the real nightmare begins for the government. Nami overlays her climatact models onto her rubber body, using her own limbs as living lightning rods and conduits. She whips up a dense, unnatural fog bank that crawls over Eni's lobby. Ard then seeds it with controlled thunderheads. Transponder snails all over the island start glitching as static storms fry their lines. To the Marines watching, the Straw Hats don't arrive. They materialize out of lightning. CP9 adapts fast. In the original timeline, Lucci and Kaku rely on raw impact, Tekai slams, Rankyaku blades. But what if every Shigan to the torso just sinks into rubber and rebounds? In this timeline, they switch tactics instantly. Lucci starts aiming for her knees, ankles, the tiny points where stretching needs leverage. Kaku uses commissary footwork to knock her off balance mid-swing, trying to turn her own elasticity against her. They go for liver shots, temple jabs, air bullets to the lungs, internal damage rokushiki, because brute force doesn't break a rubber mastermind. Yet here's the kicker. Nami has already planned for that. She unveils her own proto-gear system. Not chaotic like Luffy's experimentation, but timed overclock modes. She overstretches specific muscle groups for a 15-second speed spike, turning into a blur that chain kicks through multiple agents before her legs seize up. Then she swaps to an arm-focused power burst, using amplified recoil to redirect Rankyaku blades back at their users. Every mode has a cooldown, and she's literally counting them down in her head like a navigator tracking currents. And then, we hit the flag. In the original timeline, Luffy orders Sogeking to burn the world government's banner. And it's an iconic moment. But what if the whole world actually saw it? As Sogeking's arrow flies, Nami times a lightning strike through the climatact, and turning that single flaming shot into a blinding column of fire and thunder. She forces every transponder snail on Enia's lobby to spike, broadcasting that burning symbol across marine bases, news ships, and even certain underground lines. For one instant, every Den Mushi shows the same image, the world government's flag, devoured by a storm, with a rubber woman silhouette framed in the lightning. That's not just a declaration of war, that's branding, and the government responds. Because once you publicly humiliate their symbol, what happens when they stop sending assassins and start sending gods? The hidden name of the fruit, Nika clues in a Nami-centered world. And that's where the old legends start shaking. Because the moment the storm silhouette goes viral, on every cryptic line about a certain fruit and a sun god suddenly stops pointing at a goofy rubber captain and starts pointing at a rubber navigator. You see, in the original timeline, Shanks accidentally loses the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and Luffy eats it. But what if Shanks's protection of that fruit was never about any random kid? What if it was about waiting for the child of the sea? In this timeline, Shanks hearing about a weather-obsessed girl in East Blue hits different. A girl who reads the sky like a log pose. A girl who draws maps like prophecies. The Gorosei's line about a fruit that has eluded them for centuries? Now, it's not just a bureaucratic complaint. It's panic, because the thing they feared most didn't go to a hot-headed brawler. It fused with the one person who can weaponize the planet's own climate. Let's dive into Who's Who's story about the sun god Nika. In the original timeline, it foreshadows Luffy. In this timeline, the slaves don't whisper about a dancing warrior. They whisper about a storm walker, a figure whose laughter sounds like thunder, and whose steps turn chains into rubber, whose hands stretch across horizons like map lines. Nika isn't just the god of freedom anymore. Nika is the liberator of weather, the one who turns the sky itself against the world government. Here's the kicker. Roger's crew might have seen this coming. We know they reached Laugh-Tale. We know they laughed at a story about a man who would shake the world. But what if they also saw hints of a child of the weather and the sea inheriting Nika's power? Suddenly, Roger asking Rouge to bear the future of the world, and Shanks obsessing over that one fruit, feel like they're dancing around a second axis, not just the Pirate King, but the Storm Queen. Whitebeard's words to Sengoku hit harder now. One day, someone will appear carrying centuries of history on his shoulders. In this timeline, that someone is a woman who literally shakes the climate of battlefields. Marineford's tsunamis? Nami with Nika turns them into rubber walls. Buster calls? She bends the air so cannon fire curves back like a slap from the sky. And Nami's past? It stops being a tragic backstory and starts reading like training from hell. Her obsession with drawing the entire world becomes Nika's way of forcing her to understand the stage she'll liberate. Her hatred and fear of the sea? A test so the future storm god learns respect before she commands it. Her greed, her deal-making, her survival instincts under Arlong? Those are the tools of a liberator who has to outthink tyrants, not just outpunch them. But what if the fruit wasn't just found by her? It chose her? Think back through this timeline. The way her body stretches further when she's furious at injustice. The way lightning seems to miss her when she laughs in the middle of a storm. The way her rubber form syncs with the Climattact so cleanly it feels less like a weapon and more like a conductor's baton. The Gomu Gomu no Mi, or rather the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika, responds to joy, to rhythm, to imagination. And Nami is all of that, filtered through a strategist's brain. Everyone expects Nika to be a frontline brawler. But what happens to the world when the god of freedom is a navigator who can steer entire nations instead of just ships? Sabaody Archipelago, supernovae, slavery, and a rising rubber threat. And nowhere does that terrify the world more than Sabaody. By the time the Thousand Sunny glides into the mangrove forest, Nami isn't just cat burglar anymore. She's the Storm of Kokoyasi, with a rubber body and a bounty that cracked 100 million the moment Inia's lobby fell, then spiked again after she humiliated a warlord with lightning that literally bent around her own stretched limbs. In the original timeline, Luffy was the unpredictable brawler. In this timeline, the Marines whisper about a rubber tactician who outplayed Skypia's so-called god with math. So when the supernovae gather, everyone is watching her. A kid sees a walking natural disaster, not as overwhelming physically as Luffy, but capable of turning the entire battlefield into a trap. Law narrows his eyes, already imagining a room where her elastic vectors and his spatial cuts create impossible angles. Hawkins's cards shake a little harder when he calculates survival odds against a woman who can predict trajectories, bend her body like artillery, and call down storms on command. You see, they're not just measuring raw power. They're asking, do we really want this monster as an enemy? Then the celestial dragons arrive. In the auction house, the tension is the same, until it isn't. Charlos shoots Hachi. The room freezes. In the original timeline, Luffy walks up and decks him. But what if it's Nami? Rubber muscles coiling, hockey-laced fists snapping forward like a thunderbolt. She doesn't just punch a dragon. Her arm whips, rebounds off the ceiling, and slams him so hard into the wall that the entire platform shatters. For a split second, black lightning flickers around her. Conqueror's Haki, half awake, answering Nika's drumbeat. Here's the kicker. That one hit doesn't just knock out Charlos. It knocks out half the auction house. Slaves, guards, even a few supernova fodder all drop. The Marines don't see a reckless rookie anymore. They see a special case. So when Kizaru descends in that lazy beam of light, the script is completely changed. Light meets rubber math. Every kick he fires, she's already mapped the angle. She twists her torso 90 degrees midair, lets his Yasakani no Magatama graze past, then slingshots herself off a building using his own photons as prediction data. Could she fully reflect a light beam yet? Not quite. But by stretching a leg, taking the hit at a calculated angle, and snapping back, she can redirect enough of the blast to blow up his own pacifista line. Suddenly, even an admiral has to take a half step back. And far above, the real panic starts. The Shichibukai system is already cracking post-Marineford in our main project. But here, the world government sees something even worse. Nika in the hands of a strategist. Kuma's orders become urgent and absolute. This isn't just about scattering a rookie crew. It's about making sure this rubber fruit never awakens under someone who can plan a war. So when Kuma raises his paw, every single paw print is a desperate move by a terrified regime. And the world map Nami once drew in her head is about to be shattered and redrawn. I'm 2 years in the storm, Nami's training, and the science of rubber deification. When the paw print fades, Nami doesn't land in some random forest or snowfield. She crashes into a sky island that studies weather like a weapon. Wetheria. And here's the kicker. In this timeline, she doesn't just bring a thief's brain and a navigator's heart. She brings a rubber body tied to a god the world government is terrified of. In the original timeline, Wetheria was Nami's crash course in high-level meteorology and climate-act upgrades. But what if the lab rats and test tubes suddenly included her own limbs? You see, the scientists are fascinated. A human who can stretch like a cloud band, tank blunt force like a pressure cushion, and shrug off lightning like a living Faraday cage? They don't just teach her. Then they start designing experiments around her. So Nami leans in. She's the one holding the clipboard while she's being launched by wind cannons to see how much drag her rubber body creates. She charts exactly how far her arms can extend before microtears appear, then times how long recovery takes under different temperatures. Superheated air? She gets looser, faster, whiplash snapping across the sky. Sub-zero drafts? Her elasticity tightens, snaps harder, but risks brittle recoil. Every data point becomes a future technique. Then comes the lightning. Where Luffy used to tank Enel by accident, Nami walks into storm chambers on purpose. They crank the voltage. Bolts slam into her, race along her skin, and she notes how the charge pools, how it flows, how it can be redirected into her climate act. Rubber body plus atmospheric electricity means she can become the conductor and the insulator at the same time, turning herself into a living junction box between weapon and weather. And that's when weird things start happening. Proto-awakening moments. She laughs during a pressure test and the nearby deck planks bounce too much, like the world itself just turned springy. A scientist drops a wrench, it hits her shoulder, and the metal warps on contact, bending as if reality misjudged what was rubber and what wasn't. During a test cyclone, storm clouds above Wetheria twitch when she stretches, as if her motions are tugging on the sky's fabric. Compare that to Luffy on Rusukaina with Rayleigh. In the original timeline, Luffy trains Haki, refines gears by feel, and fights monsters until instinct becomes king. But in this timeline, Nami is writing a war manual, named moves, rubber wind slingshots for long-range travel, heat-stretched jet forecast punches that accelerate with tailwinds, contingency pages labeled Calm Belt, New World blizzards, Yonko Territory storm walls, each packed with weather rubber combos tailored to specific seas. And as the months fly, the fruit stops feeling like just Gomu Gomu no Mi. When she stretches across an entire test deck to anchor storm balloons, she doesn't feel human imitating rubber. She feels like freedom of movement itself. When she stands above the clouds, immune to lightning, calculating routes that spit in the face of whirlpools and currents, she feels like freedom from the sea's tyranny. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Nika language without anyone saying the word. Not just a rubber girl, but a walking rejection of limits. So the real question becomes, when this Nami finally leaves Witheria and sees a world still ruled by Marineford's fear, what happens the first time she decides to bend the environment of an entire battlefield, not just her body? Because the next island she lands on won't be ready for what walks out of the clouds. Return to Sabaody, a calculated rubber captain in the New World. The clouds part over Sabaody, and this time, the thing descending isn't just a pirate ship. It's a weather event with a Jolly Roger. You see, in this timeline, the first thing the Straw Hats see at the reunion is Nami, stepping off the Sunny with lightning casually coiling around her rubber arm like a pet. She waves, and the thunder bends with the gesture. Not a dramatic attack. Just, hello? An ecstatic dances over her shoulders, her body stretching a little as she lands, absorbing the impact like it's nothing. In the original timeline, Nami came back as the upgraded navigator. But what if she returns as a fully realized rubber storm commander, the woman who can literally grab the atmosphere and move it where she wants? Everyone feels it instantly. Zoro's hand goes to his swords, not in worry, but in recognition. The battlefield just got a new general. Sanji lights his cigarette, wind swirling in a controlled spiral because Nami's already tweaking pressure and charge to keep the flames safe. Luffy's grin is wide, but even he glances at her like, so, what's the play? And then the pacifistas arrive. In the original timeline, this reunion is a flex of raw upgrades, a straight-up beatdown. But in this timeline, Nami refuses to waste a battlefield this rich. Positions! She snaps, rubber fingers snapping out like slings, grabbing Zoro's coat, Sanji's tie, even Usopp's belt. She stretches, anchors to a mast, and suddenly the whole crew is on an elastic web. A PX-4 fires a laser. Nami twists her torso, rubber abdomen absorbing and refracting the beam along a pre-calculated angle, bouncing it off her arm into another pacifista's shoulder. Zoro doesn't charge blindly. He waits for the call. 3 o'clock, high! Nami yanks him back, then slingshots him with a lightning-charged Gomu Gomu assist, turning his leap into a supersonic diagonal slash that cleaves a pacifista's neck joint clean. Sanji's kicks become guided missiles. Nami reels him in and fires him out, over and over, each time adjusting tension and wind so his flames never gutter. Usopp and Frankie ride rubber lines like zip rails, sniping and blasting from angles the Marines can't track. Robin blooms arms on Nami's stretched limbs, chaining grapples and throws. It's not chaos, it's choreography. Here's the kicker. Zoro and Sanji don't argue with the orders. Not here, not now. They've seen what happens when Nami has full map control and a rubber body that can tag any point in the arena in an instant. Her vantage point isn't just height, it's reach, prediction, and climate all stacked together. When she yells, "Duck," they don't question, they move. Luffy still leads the soul of the crew. He's the one who shouts, who laughs in the face of Kizaru's light, who tells everyone they're going to the New World no matter what. But when the lasers start flying, when admirals and pacifistas and random marines all converge, you notice something. Luffy looks to Nami for the route. Dual leadership. Emotional captain, tactical captain. Enemies used to sniping the brain or the figurehead suddenly have to ask, which one is the real threat? And the world watches. Because every time this crew appears now, the climate twitches. Storm fronts bend off course. Wind shears open like doors. The air itself seems to rubber snap around Nami's whims. If Marineford was terrified of one rubber boy changing the story, what happens when the New World realizes there's a rubber storm goddess calculating every battlefield like a living buster call? That's the kind of presence that turns the next major conflict into more than a war. It turns it into a weather disaster with a bounty. It's pre-war tension, how the world government classifies the rubber navigator. And the craziest part? The only people more terrified than the pirates are the ones sitting on top of the world, cut away from storms and bounties. We're in Maria Joie now. Candlelight, long shadows, and the Gorosei staring at a stack of reports that should not exist. A rubber woman who bends her body like Luffy, bends the sky like Enel, and keeps turning oppressed islands into liberated trade hubs. In the original timeline, Luffy was a chaos trigger. But in this timeline, Nami is a controlled detonation. You see, every page they read is a pattern they've seen before. East Blue villages freed. A desert kingdom saved from civil war because the weather suddenly turned. A sky island where a self-proclaimed god was struck down by a girl lightning couldn't touch. It's not just strength, it's symbolism, it's logistics, it's hope that arrives on schedule. Here's the kicker. One of those reports gets routed through Impel Down. A certain defeated CP9 agent turned prisoner hears a whisper. Who's Who, the man who once failed to guard a certain devil fruit, suddenly hears the words, Rubber Navigator and Weather Goddess in the same breath. That old scar from when the Gomu Gomu no Mi escaped the government? It rips open instantly. He remembers the crate, the ambush, the higher-ups insisting that fruit was more important than his entire unit. And now? There's that same fruit is on a woman who sails into tyrant-ruled islands and leaves them smiling. But what if that isn't coincidence? What if the legends attached to that fruit were real the whole time? Inside Marine HQ, the debate explodes. Some vice admirals slam their fists down and call it overblown. She's just another strong paramecia user, rubber body, weather gadgets, that's it. Others pull out dusty, half-burned records. They point at phrases like sun god, drums of liberation, and a laughing figure who turns battlefields into festivals. A rubber body, a joy in battle, and a trail of liberated nations? It matches too well. Let's dive into Garp's head for a second, ladies and gentlemen. He hears the briefings. He hears the name Nami of the Storm Crown. He remembers Roger smiling at the gallows. He remembers Luffy at Marineford. Charging through hell for Ace. Now imagine a symbol just as dangerous, but one who can literally rewrite the weather of war, turning buster calls into fog-choked disasters where Marines can't even see their own flags. Does he really draw his fist against that? Or does he hesitate, like he did with Luffy, knowing that one more symbol of freedom might be exactly what this story needs? The Gorosei won't risk it. A classified order goes out. Top clearance only. If Nami appears at any major conflict, Marineford scale or greater, admirals are to prioritize her containment or elimination above other high-value targets, even above emerging emperors. Because if her fruit awakens and the battlefield itself starts rubber snapping, bending, and refusing to obey gravity or cannon trajectories, then the war won't just be lost. The war itself will rebel. Ace, Whitebeard, and the rubber storm that never should reach Marineford. The war won't just rebel on its own. It's about to be given a conductor. Because while the world government is scrambling to contain this hypothetical rubber storm, Ace has already been captured. In the original timeline, that alone was enough to drag Whitebeard to Marineford and shake the world. But what if this time, the rumor mill adds one more terrifying variable? The storm of Kokoyasi is moving too. Not just Luffy, not just a rookie pirate crew, but a rubber navigator who can bend the battlefield and the sky at the same time. Word spreads fast. From Sabaody to the New World, everyone starts whispering. They say the Straw Hats are coming. They say a woman who turned Arlong Park into a twisted rubber graveyard is sailing straight toward Marineford. They say she mocks gods and redirects thunder like spare change. And when that reaches Whitebeard's ship, that's when things really change. You see, in this timeline, Whitebeard doesn't just hear Straw Hat Luffy, son of Dragon. He hears about a navigator whose body laughs at cannon fire, whose storms refuse to obey marine science, and whose very existence has Cypher Paul rewriting threat levels. A rubber woman who toppled tyrants and navigated the Grand Line like it was her personal ledger. Whitebeard leans back, IVs shaking, and remembers Roger's words about someone who will shake the world. Could this storm of Kokoyasi be another fragment of that same inherited will? Let's dive into Marineford's side. Because they are not taking chances. The admirals are briefed in a closed chamber. Kizaru is shown projections of rubber light beams refracting off warped air. Aokiji is warned that ice paths can be slingshotted back at the fleet if the sea itself starts behaving like rubber. Akainu is handed the harshest file: Nami's climatact tech, her weather science, and her gum-gum body. Countermeasures are brutal and specific. Seastone nets calibrated for mid-air deployment. Weather-dampening towers designed to choke cloud formation over the plaza. Orders from the Gorosei themselves. Isolate the navigator, drag her away from Ace, away from Luffy, away from any open sky. Meanwhile, down in Impel Down, Ace hears the whispers through the bars. Luffy is coming, like before. But now there's more. Or as they say, his little brother's crew sails with a woman the world fears almost as much as Dragon. A woman whose storms erased entire marine task forces, whose bounty posters are stamped with quiet panic. Ace laughs at first, then goes silent. If Luffy and Nami both break into Marineford, what kind of chaos follows? Here's the kicker, ladies and gentlemen. Marineford was already a powder keg. In the original timeline, Gear 2 and Gear 3 were enough to tilt the war's emotional core. But what if you inject a potential Nika awakening into a battlefield where the weather itself can rubber snap, where shockwaves bounce, magma fists ricochet, and gravity stops making sense? Does Whitebeard's last stand become a storm god uprising? Do the admirals hold the line, or does the entire plaza turn into a living, laughing trampoline of rebellion? And when the Moby Dick finally rises on the horizon and black clouds start to curl into unnatural spirals above Marineford, is that just a storm? Or is that Nami beginning to smile? Arrival at the Execution Plaza. First contact between Nami and the world's strongest. It isn't just a storm, it's the opening bell. The Moby Dick breaches the encircling ice, Whitebeard's fleet roaring forward. And that's when you see how this timeline refuses to behave. Instead of ships trying to slip past the walls, Nami turns the entire battlefield into her personal slingshot range. Rubber arms whip out, anchoring to frozen icebergs, shattered masts, even the side of Marineford's towering ramparts. One by one, Straw Hats and allied pirates are yanked and flung overhead like artillery shells. Usopp is screaming. Frankie is loving it. And above them, storm clouds gather unnaturally fast, spiraling tighter and tighter over the plaza, as if the sky itself is on a countdown. In the original timeline, Luffy simply crashed down from the sky, raw willpower and chaos. But in this timeline, the first thing Whitebeard sees is different. Through the smoke of cannon fire, there's a woman made of rubber, body bending at impossible angles as she ricochets off falling debris, lightning flickering lazily around her like it's just another accessory. He hears her laugh as she slings herself past an explosion, and for a split second, the old man remembers stories. Stories of a man who laughs on the battlefield, of a future that would upend the world. You see, that's the moment Whitebeard's eyes narrow. Not at Luffy, at Nami. Marineford reacts instantly. Vice Admirals bark orders. His pacifista's eyes glow, and every targeting line recalculates toward this one impossible navigator. A wall of light and lead erupts, laser beams, cannon volleys, concentrated rifle fire. On paper, Nami should be erased. But what if rubber math beats marine firepower? She plants one heel, stretches her leg across shattered stone, and lets the first barrage slam into her body. It doesn't pierce, it bounces. She twists, calculating angles like weather patterns, and suddenly the plaza turns into a pinball table of death. Lasers carom off her arms and snap into tower faces. Cannonballs rebound off her torso and detonate inside tightly packed marine formations. Pacifista beams skim her rubber skin, bend, and hammer into their own mechanical allies. Explosions blossom in all the wrong places, and pirates lose their minds cheering as shells that should have killed them bounce harmlessly away, bursting behind retreating Marines. Every time Nami snaps a limb back into place, a rubber shockwave rips through the ground, shattering lines and sending soldiers flying. She flicks the Climatact, and sudden gusts of wind shove volleys off course, turning perfect formations into scattered, terrified clusters. Here's the kicker. The more chaos she creates, the more precise she gets. Whitebeard's commanders notice. Marco clocks how she's not just defending herself, she's redrawing the entire battlefield, lane by lane. Sengoku and the admirals notice too, eyes shifting from Luffy's charge to the storm-wrapped anomaly who's making Marineford's defenses look like a bad forecast. And then we hit the first real test. On an admiral's strike, pure, lethal, no hesitation, drops toward Luffy as he sprints for the execution platform, exactly like in the original timeline when he was always one heartbeat from death. But this time, before impact, a single orange-haired silhouette moves. Nami's arm whips across the battlefield, stretching over shattered stone, through smoke and lightning. Her fingers clamp onto the back of Luffy's vest and yank him out of the kill zone in the same instant the attack obliterates the ground where he stood. In front of the entire world, the message is clear. The new generation has a rubber shield, and she's the one holding the storm. So what happens when the admirals realize they're not just fighting Whitebeard's last era, but Nami's first? Rubber versus. In Admirals, Kizaru's light meets a calculated elasticity. And the admirals take that message personally. Kizaru doesn't stroll in like in the original timeline. He drops. A column of light spears down from the heavens, pixels of gold scattering across the shattered plaza, and when it clears, he's already mid-kick, already aiming straight at Nami, not Whitebeard, not Luffy. In this timeline, the problem isn't just a rubber pirate. It's a rubber navigator who's turning Marineford into her personal weather map. His foot connects. Or it should. Light speed, laser sharp, the same kick that sent Luffy flying. But Nami's torso whips away on a pre-stretched arc, her upper body snapping back like a slingshot as her lower half stays planted, toes gripping cracked stone. She doesn't react to Kizaru. She's already where she needs to be before he finishes moving. Because that's the scary part, you see. She can't match his speed. She doesn't need to. While everyone else is blinking at his teleporting beams, Nami has already run the numbers. Angle of descent, line of sight, reflective surfaces, cloud density overhead. She's reading Kizaru like a bad weather pattern. Let's dive into how nasty that gets. Kizaru flickers to a nearby mast, forming a Yasakani no Magatama barrage. In the original timeline, those lasers just rain down. But here, Nami has already stretched an arm up and around a broken execution tower, rubber limbs hugging stone like improvised barriers. She snaps her forearm wide, creating a moving wall that catches Marines behind her while she yells coordinates to the Whitebeard commanders. She can't bounce light itself. Here's the kicker. She doesn't try. Instead, she pops a condensed rain tempo above Kizaru's firing lane, turning clear air into a shimmering veil. Sudden fog blooms from a cold, hot pressure clash, distorting visibility. His lasers still pierce, but his perfect sniping lines become guesswork, forced into awkward angles where her rubber body can contort and her allies can slip through. He fires where she was. She's already snapped sideways, using her own stretched arm as a zipline, slingshotting herself between shattered pillars while lightning crawls along storm clouds she planted minutes earlier. Then the battlefield temperature crashes. Aokiji steps in like a walking climate denial. Ice Age rolls out, freezing tidal waves, sealing escape routes, trying to lock this chaotic equation back into something the Marines can control. But what if the one person you don't want controlling temperature already owns the sky? Nami spikes heat pockets with Mirage Tempo, creating localized warm fronts that thin the ice into slush corridors for allies, while leaving thick, jagged walls between admirals and key targets. When spears of ice hammer into her, her rubber body dents, bends, and snaps back instead of shattering like a normal human would. She even uses that. An ice chunk slams her midsection. She lets it carry her, rubber torso compressing, then rebounds off it, turning Kuzan's own attack into a launch pad to higher ground where her storm radius grows. Suddenly, Marineford isn't a static battlefield. It's a living equation, and Nami is updating it every second. The admirals feel that shift. They can't just overwhelm this crew with raw force anymore. When they're being funneled, misled, baited into dead zones where visibility is trash, footing is unstable, and every bolt of lightning is pre-calculated to graze them by millimeters. So the real question becomes, when the world government's strongest realize they're being out-navigated, who adapts first, the admirals or the storm? The drums of liberation in a navigator's chest, Nami's breaking point. And that's exactly when the storm starts fighting back. At first, Nami's plan looks flawless. The admirals are walled in by lightning, the pacifistas are slipping on flooded stone, and entire marine formations are getting funneled into her dead zones. But what if the very scale she unleashed turns on her? The tidal surges she calculated to the centimeter start smashing into already shattered ships. Ice screams cut through the thunder as masts collapse, cannon crews vanish under waves, and even Whitebeard's men are dragged under foaming water. In the original timeline, Marineford was chaos. But in this timeline, that chaos is wearing Nami's signature. Every casualty feels like it's stamped with her pen. You see, she's always fought for survival and money. A map to buy back Kokoyasi. A treasure stash to buy one more day under Arlong's boot. She never signed up to rewrite an era. Yet now, as Ace's execution clock ticks down, she watches entire fleets burn their flags for one man in chains. Giant captains hurl themselves at admirals. Fathers throw their bodies over sons. Even random pirates who never met Ace are screaming his name like it's their own. And that hits her in a way no bounty ever did. Because suddenly, when Ace on that platform isn't just a pirate, he's Belmere facing a gun. He's Nojiko clutching her arm. He's every villager kneeling while Arlong laughs. The plaza blurs, and for a heartbeat, Marineford becomes Kokoyasi scaled up to a world map. Marines as fishmen. The execution platform as Arlong Park's tower. The age of Whitebeard as just another cage someone drew over the sea. Her rubber body is supposed to be an advantage here. Instead, it's tearing itself apart. She's overclocked every mode she's invented, limbs slingshotting artillery speed, veins bulging as she whips the storm into tighter spirals, skin stretching and snapping back so hard her joints scream. Each new lightning call runs through her like a live wire. Her heartbeat starts syncing with the thunder overhead. Too loud, too fast. It's like the sky itself is inside her ribcage. Clouds roil into an unnatural dome over Marineford. Not just dark, heavy, pressurized. Like the atmosphere is waiting for something it doesn't have a word for yet. Luffy is still charging, still bleeding, still falling short. Here's the kicker. Nami can see with navigator precision the exact second he won't make it. The distance, the angle, the admirals converging, the blades rising. Her brain does what it's always done, calculates the inevitable. And that's the moment it breaks. She starts laughing. Not because it's funny, but because if the world is this rigged, what else is there left to do? Tears streak down her face, mixing with the rain, she called, as her shoulders shake with hysterical, furious laughter. She screams Ace's name, Luffy's name, Kokoyasi's name, every name she ever drew on a map and swore she'd protect. The sound rips out of her, raw and ragged, and then everyone hears it, under the thunder, beneath the sirens, a rhythm, like distant drums beating from somewhere inside the navigator's chest, and for a single, impossible instant, the storm keeps time. So what happens when Marineford realizes the thing awakening isn't on the platform at all, but in the sky above it? Awakening the rubber storm god. Nami's Nika, unleashed Marineford, doesn't understand it at first. The thunder doesn't just roar, it sinks. Each bolt hits in time with that invisible drumline pounding from Nami's chest, like the sky itself is keeping beat with her heartbeat. The clouds split open, not in jagged cracks, but in perfect, pulsing flashes that strobe across the battlefield like a living metronome. Her scream becomes a laugh, her laugh becomes an echo, and then her body changes. Everyone watches as Nami's skin bleaches into that impossible glossy white, like she's been sketched straight out of a manga panel and dropped into reality. Her hair whips around her, orange turned to a blazing, flowing banner, and her clothes billow and stretch without tearing, like they're made of the same rubber as her body. The air around her doesn't just vibrate, it bounces, warping heat haze style with every breath she takes. In the original timeline, this is where you'd expect Luffy, Drums of Liberation, Gear 5, the whole thing. But in this timeline, every single sign belongs to the navigator who's been defying the sea her entire life. Sengoku's eyes go wide. This is not just a paramecia awakening. He's seen the records, heard the whispers. And the Gorosei, watching through transponder snails, go dead silent as they recognize the pattern. The Hito Hito no Mi, Model Nika, manifesting through a woman who charts storms and spits in the face of tides. A rubber god of freedom, but tuned to the weather instead of fists. And Marineford pays for it instantly. The execution plaza shudders as the stone turns springy underfoot. Marines stumble, then bounce, then full-on boing across the square against their will, rifles wobbling like wet noodles. Cannons twist around mid-shot, barrels bending like taffy and firing harmlessly into the sky. Tower spires sway comically, stretching, drooping, and snapping back like they're made of gelatin instead of steel and stone. Even the ocean freezes for a heartbeat. Waves that were about to crash into the bay suddenly stop mid-air, suspended like rubber curtains. Then they slingshot back in impossible arcs, looping and curling around ships without sinking them, as if the sea itself has been forced into a cartoon. Let's dive into the real insanity. The weather. Storm clouds stretch like elastic, pulled across the sky by Nami's outstretched fingers, snapping into spirals and loops that orbit Marineford like rubber halos. Lightning doesn't fall straight anymore. It curves, it coils, it ties itself into knots before slamming down in playful spirals that somehow avoid her allies and zap straight through battleships and pacifistas. Rain starts coming down, and then bouncing back up. Each droplet hits the ground, squashes flat, and springs away, ricocheting off walls, shields, even admiral coats, turning the entire war into a chaotic, wet pinball machine. You see Marines slipping on rebounding puddles, while pirates literally surf on rubberized waves of water and stone. And here's the kicker. Nami isn't just winging it. Her imagination fuses with her calculations. Barometric pressure, wind vectors, charge differentials. Every number becomes a toy in her hands. She grins, eyes wide, drums pounding. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nami in Gear 5, Rubber Storm Goddess mode, where her imagination, not just her calculations, becomes the ultimate weapon against the world government. So if this is what her awakening does to Marineford in a single heartbeat, what happens when she actually decides to aim it? Marineford rewritten, beat-by-beat chaos under the rubber sky. So when she finally aims it, Marineford doesn't just shake, it bends, it laughs. It turns into a rubber nightmare carnival for the world government. Whitebeard moves first. In the original timeline, his opening quake tilts the sea and cracks the plaza, a raw show of Yonko power. But in this timeline, when that colossal Bicento slams down, it hits a battlefield that Nami has already turned into a giant trampoline. The quake force doesn't just split stone, it ricochets. Shockwaves bounce between elastic ground and wobbling towers, folding back into marine lines like a sonic whip. You see vice admirals launched like cannonballs, ships buckling as the harbor itself pulses like a heartbeat, and every aftershock gets amplified instead of fading out. Whitebeard just grins. The old man realizes instantly, the rubber storm goddess is making his fruit louder. And then we get to Ace. On the execution platform, the sea stone chains dig into his wrists. In the original timeline, it takes Luffy's desperate charge and outside help to even reach him. But what if Nami decides those chains are just badly placed coordinates? She plants her feet, rubber toes sinking into the bouncy plaza, and her arms slingshot upward in looping, cartoonish spirals. Kizaru's light beams, Aokiji's ice lances, Akainu's magma fists all weave between her limbs as she curves around them like she's drawing weather maps in midair. Her fingers snap onto the chains. One yank. Seastone shatters like brittle twigs. The entire platform bends under the redirected force, pillars warping, the execution stand bowing into a U-shape while Ace tumbles forward into her stretched, waiting chest. It looks ridiculous. It feels divine. Here's the kicker. The admirals try to answer back. And Marineford itself turns on them. Akainu drives a magma fist into the plaza, expecting solid stone. Instead, his arm sinks into rubber that swallows the impact, then slings it sideways. Lava geysers erupt at insane angles, bursting under marine formations, setting their own siege weapons on fire. Cannon lines melt, lower-ranked soldiers scramble, and Akainu has to keep canceling his own attacks, or risk roasting half the fleet. Every punch is a gamble now. Every step might bounce. Meanwhile, Nami is laughing. She's wreathed in storm clouds, thunderheads coiling around her like a crown, lightning skating over her rubber skin without harm. Cannonballs hit her, squash her, and slingshot back into battleships. Giants slip on the elastic ground and faceplant into their own comrades. Death is still everywhere, but the tone has changed. It's not a slow, grinding war of attrition anymore. It's a surreal liberation festival where oppression keeps slipping on its own banana peel. And that does something to pirate morale. Men who came here expecting to die now see a dancing Nami turning admiral barrages into slapstick. They charge harder. Vista times his sword swings with the bouncing quakes. Yozu uses the rubber recoil to launch diamond tackles even faster. Even Ace, freshly freed, stares at her with this mix of awe and disbelief, flames sinking with the rhythm of her storm. Let's dive into the real question. If Marineford itself is laughing under a rubber sky, how does the world government respond when they realize this isn't just chaos? It's Nika's legend rewriting the battlefield in real time? Garp? Sengoku? One and the weight of history, choosing whether to stop. Nami Marineford is roaring, the sky itself is laughing, and right in the middle of it you see Nami doing the impossible. Rubber arms whipping through the storm, she yanks Ace and Luffy out of execution range like they're buoys in a hurricane. Lightning frames her silhouette. The sea of Marines below? They're staring at a legend they don't have a name for yet. From the platform, Garp watches all of this with the heaviest vantage point in the war. In the original timeline, this is where he had to choose between duty and his grandson. But in this timeline, it's worse. Because when Nami stretches across the plaza, laughing with that wild, free grin as thunder drums overhead, Garp doesn't just see a clever navigator. He sees echoes of Roger on the scaffold, like of a man whose smile lit the fuse on a whole era. What if this girl becomes the new symbol the world rallies behind? What if Storm Nika replaces Pirate King as the name whispered in every bar? Garp's fist tightens so hard the air cracks. He remembers Whitebeard's words about the one who will change the world. And suddenly, it's not Luffy he's thinking about anymore. It's the orange-haired rubber storm rewriting Marineford in real time. Sengoku, meanwhile, isn't looking at her as a sentimental old man. He's looking as the fleet admiral who has read every classified scroll on the Gomu Gomu no Mi. He hears the drums in the lightning, sees the absurdity of her rubber weather tricks, and connects the dots instantly. This isn't just a paramecia. This is that fruit, that god, that story the world government has tried to bury for centuries. Now, here's the kicker. From Sengoku's perspective, the cleanest solution is brutal. Crush Nami here in front of everyone before this Nika fully awakens and the world's balance is shattered. But what happens if he kills a laughing girl who just saved Ace and Luffy, live in front of the entire era? Does he stop a calamity, or does he create a martyr that no propaganda can ever erase? Let's dive into the moment he chooses action over hesitation. Sengoku explodes into his Buddha form, golden and towering, shockwaves ripping through the already broken plaza. He brings a massive palm down on Nami, aiming to end this timeline's Nika before she can ascend. In the original timeline, this kind of blow could flatten entire pirate crews. But what if the very concept of impact betrays him? Nami plants her rubber feet, the storm cloud swirling tighter as she channels the force. The Buddha palm hits, but instead of crushing her, her body dimples, warps, then slingshots the shockwave outwards in a rubber-boosted ring that tears through ships and scatters marines. Lightning lances along the redirected force, turning Sengoku's justice into her storm. Every second they hesitate, she's reshaping Marineford itself. Saving pirates, bending cannons, turning execution platforms into trampolines of revolution. Garp knows that if she escapes today, the story of Nika won't be a rumor. It'll be a broadcast. So he steps forward, fists clenched, jaw set. Between Sengoku's burning glare and Nami's laughing storm, Garp stands at the fault line of history. Does he throw his fist at the new era, or at the system that wants to kill it? But the next move he makes doesn't just change Marineford, it decides which legend the world believes. Ace's fate in the rubber timeline. Can Nami's calculations beat tragedy? And while Garp hesitates on that fault line, there's another equation running in the background. Ace's death flag. In the original timeline, we all know what's coming. Luffy breaks the cuffs, the brothers run, Akainu baits Ace, and that single burning punch goes straight through him. A fixed point of tragedy. But what if the most rubber-obsessed brain on the battlefield refuses to let that constant exist? You see, in this timeline, Nami isn't just sprinting blindly after Luffy. She's mapping everything. Cannon arcs, admiral positions, even the rhythm of Akainu's footwork in the chaos. Her observation haki is crude, but her navigator's brain is cracked genius. She remembers the original line of events that should have killed Luffy here. The way magma cuts angles, the distance between Ace's back and his brother's chest. She's running the math on death in real time. Akainu lunges, the same insult, the same rage. Ace turns, Luffy freezes. Instantly, Nami's arm whips out, rubber snapping across the plaza like a lightning cable. One option, she yanks both brothers sideways, slingshotting them behind falling debris. Another, she stretches both arms wide and creates a living rubber shield, banking on her new resistance and the weird, elastic physics of Nika's body to disperse the magma's force instead of taking it straight through the torso. But here's the kicker. Every save has a price. If she pulls them away, where does that redirected magma fist land? A pack of random pirates? A line of Marines who were just following orders? If she rebounds it off her rubber body, does it sail into the lower city and melt civilians who never chose this war? Nami, the girl who once fought only for Kokoyashi, is suddenly responsible for the whole board. This is where the emotional calculus goes crazy. In the original timeline, Ace decides alone. He chooses to die for Luffy, and everyone else just suffers the result. In this timeline, Nami has to decide whether Ace is worth a potential city block of collateral. She's not a hero who runs on pure instinct like Luffy. She's the one who counts the cost. How many lives equal one brother? How many futures does she erase to keep this one man breathing? So we branch. First scenario, she commits to the pull. Rubber arms coil around both brothers, and she slings them clear. And even if it means Akainu's attack tears through the plaza and forces Whitebeard's remnants to body block for the weaker pirates. Ace lives. The post-war era now has a living Whitebeard heir walking beside a rubber Nika navigator who just hard-countered an admiral on live broadcast. The Yonko balance, Blackbeard's rise, even Dragon's timetable all get shaken. Second scenario. She hesitates for half a heartbeat, trying to find the zero casualty line that doesn't exist. Ace sees it. He understands. And this time, when he steps in front of Luffy, it's not because nobody else could act. It's because Nami refused to sacrifice hundreds for one man. He still dies. but now his death brands her. She's the rubber god who couldn't save everyone, the storm that miscalculated. Whichever path you choose, ladies and gentlemen, but the world won't just talk about Ace's fate. They'll talk about the woman whose rubber hands were close enough to change it. And in the next part, we'll see how that single moment turns Nami from Witch of the Straw Hats into either a living miracle or the most terrifying variable the world government has ever seen. Escape or extinction, how the Straw Hats flee a rubber-twisted Marineford, and this is where the war itself starts trying to run away from Nami. Marineford isn't just a battlefield anymore. It's a rubber storm turned into a navigation route. While everyone's still processing that the Witch of the Straw Hats just grabbed Ace's fate with her own hands, Nami does what she's always done best. She charts an escape. Only this time, the map is reality. She slams the Climatact down, and lightning crackles through the warped plaza, and the very ground stretches into elastic bridges that slingshot pirates away from the execution stand. In the original timeline, the retreat was chaos, a desperate scramble under marine fire. But in this timeline, Nami weaponizes that chaos. Debris that should have crushed people, it suddenly bounces, rubberized mid-air, turning falling towers into springboards. You see Whitebeard's men vaulting off shattered mast pieces, flying over marine lines like they're on a giant trampoline park of death. Every impact she calculates, every rebound she angles toward the bay where retreat ships are waiting. Here's the kicker. The Allies instantly adapt. Marco wraps his Phoenix Flames around one of Nami's elastic causeways, tanking Kizaru's lasers while squads race beneath him. The Jozu body checks a rubberized iceberg, sending it skidding like a hockey puck to form a moving shield for Ace and Jinbei. Ivankov's forces literally pogo through the air, using Nami's bouncing shockwaves to hop over pacifista beams. And Crocodile, he grinds his sand into the rubber ground Nami laid out, turning it into a frictionless slide that spits entire divisions straight into the harbor. But what if the real change isn't who attacks, it's who steps in front of the attacks? Jinbei sees Nami's body shaking with every new distortion and plants himself as her personal bulwark, redirecting tidal waves and magma fists away from her position. Garp, staring at this nightmare parody of the sea he's sworn to protect, has a new choice. Shield fleeing Marines from ricocheted shockwaves, or let them take the hit while he watches Ace and Nami escape. Marco, instead of just guarding Luffy and Ace like in the original timeline, keeps diving back to push exhausted crews onto Nami's rubber paths, taking blows that once belonged to other characters. The death flags are rearranged, then the Marines go for the throat. Akainu and Kizaru coordinate to cut off the bay, magma and light converging on the fleeing ships. That's when Nami does the unthinkable. She reaches past the plaza, past the harbor walls, and grabs the ocean itself. The surface of the sea warps white and glossy, turning into colossal rubber waves that scoop up pirate ships and bounce them out of cannon range like skipping stones. It works, but the cost is brutal. Her Gear 5-like form flickers, clouds thin, drums of liberation twist into an offbeat stutter. As the last Allied flag vanishes beyond the horizon, Nami's hair loses that wild, storm-lit glow, and she crashes to the broken, slowly unstretching plaza. Blood, steam, and seawater mix around her as the rubber tension in the island bleeds away. And now the pattern interrupts for the whole story. The world didn't just see Ace's execution interrupted. They saw the sea itself disobey gravity and justice at the hands of a single pirate navigator. As the storm clears and news cameras keep rolling, everyone, from the Gorosei to Big Mom's intel network, is asking the same question. If this is what Nami can do half-dead at Marineford, what happens when she learns to truly navigate Nika's power in the new world? The world reacts. Bounties, myths, and the birth of the Storm Empress. And the world does what it always does when something impossible happens at Marineford. It panics. Then it turns that panic into legend. News coups are practically breaking their wings. Morgan's is foaming at the beak, screaming headlines like, "Rubber Witch laughs at gods of justice," and Marineford bent like rubber under a storm empress. You see, in the original timeline, Luffy was the chaotic rubber symbol, but in this timeline, every paper, every Den broadcast is replaying that image of Nami, drenched, laughing, and turning the whole battlefield into a cartoon hurricane. He doesn't just report it, he mythologizes it. A woman who calls down storms and makes the sea itself dance like it's made of rubber. A navigator who rewrites the weather report of war. And because Morgans is Morgans, he instantly pushes the idea that this is the new face of the era. Not Whitebeard, not Blackbeard. A smiling rubber storm goddess who treated Marineford like her personal weather map. Here's the kicker. The bounty posters hit almost at the same time as the headlines. Nami's old numbers? Irrelevant. The world government slaps on a figure that jumps her straight into emperor-level conversations. Does it surpass Luffy's original Marineford bounty? In this timeline, absolutely. The name Nami sits under epithets that feel way too big for one person. Storm Empress, Rubber Witch. And in the shadows, in whispered reports between Cypher Paul agents and terrified archivists, another title slips through, Son of the Sea. That last one is what really scares them, because anyone who's read the right forbidden books hears Nika in that. On a sun-linked, laughing rubber figure who brings freedom and chaos? That's not just a strong pirate, that's a symbol. And symbols are harder to kill than people. Out in the blues, the reaction snaps cleanly in half. On oppressed islands, on places like Kokoyasi, Sabaodi's human shops, and backwater kingdoms crushed by tribute, people replay the footage of her storm and see hope. What if a woman who can change the sky can also change their fate? If she can make Marineford's weather disobey orders, can she make the inevitable suffering of their islands bend too? To them, the Storm Empress isn't a monster. She's the one who laughs at the forecast. But in loyalist nations, in kingdoms fat off celestial dragon favor, she's an omen. Priests call her a sign the world is unraveling. On nobles whisper that if the sea itself can be turned into a joke, then nothing is sacred. Parents tell their kids, behave, or the rubber witch will come rewrite your world. Meanwhile, the real sharks smell blood. Doflamingo is laughing, threads twitching as he recalculates every deal. A living storm that bends reality? That's either a perfect puppet or a rival god, he muses, already wondering how Nami would look dancing on his strings. Kaido hears about a Nika-coded rubber woman who can weaponize the sky and instantly files her under future raid target. Why wait for her to grow into a full legend when you can crush her now and steal that storm for yourself? Big Mom? She's obsessed. A weather-controlling rubber body that can stretch, insulate, and tank blunt force, combined with Zeus-level storms? That's a walking wedding proposal. But in underworld chatter, you start hearing plans. Capture the navigator, break her will, plug her into a Yonko empire as either battery or bride. And above all of them, the world government scrambles. Officially, they call it a rare paramecia awakening, nothing more. Just another strong pirate, totally under control. But what if you could read the memos flying between the Gorosei and the labs at Egghead? You'd see phrases like expected containment has failed, Gomu model designation error, and second Nika manifestation cannot be allowed to mature. They thought they'd buried that fruit once. Now, watching the seas worship a new Storm Empress, they realize the story has already changed. And the next move they make to correct it? That's what's going to drag the entire new world into Nami's weather. Screw dynamics after godhood. Can the Straw Hats handle a Nika navigator? And that's where things get messy, because while the world is treating Nami like a second coming of Nika, the Sunny itself feels a lot more like a pressure cooker than a temple. You see, Nami never asked for this. In the original timeline, she wanted money, maps, and enough freedom to never kneel to a fishman again. But in this timeline, her rubber smile is on every bounty board as the woman who slapped an admiral with a lightning bolt and laughed. She sees posters calling her Storm Empress Nika and instantly looks away. She insists it was just strategy, just survival. just the weather. But what if you're the one person on the crew who doesn't want to be a legend, and the entire sea has already decided you're a god? That guilt hits hard, as every time a random island bows instead of bargaining, every time a village risks a buster call just to shelter the Straw Hats, Nami feels the tab stacking up. She did all this to buy freedom for Kokoyashi, and now kids are drawing her as a sun god in the sand. That's not a dream. That's a debt she doesn't know how to pay. Here's the kicker. Luffy doesn't flinch. There's no jealousy, no "that should have been my fruit" energy. He just looks at her, grins, and says the same thing he told her back in East Blue. "You're my navigator." Only now he adds, "And I'm still gonna be Pirate King. You'll just be the storm that clears my way." While the world is screaming Nika, Luffy doubles down on being the emotional anchor, the one person on the ship who treats her like Nami from Kokoyashi, not a walking prophecy. Zoro and Sanji? So they react the only way they know how. They train like monsters, because suddenly their navigator is drawing admiral-level heat. They've seen that awakening state drain her, seen her crash on the deck after bending the sky, rubber lungs wheezing. They know she can't stay in that god mode forever. So Zoro sharpens his blades with one thought. If she falls, nothing gets past him. Sanji pushes his flames harder, swearing that no government dog touches their Nami while she's too exhausted to even stand. Robin watches all this with that quiet, terrifying awareness. She's seen the drums of liberation before, in ancient texts and forbidden carvings. Joy Boy. Nika. A sun that returns. In hushed corners of the library, she's connecting dots she doesn't fully share yet. Because what happens when the Void Century's ghost is now sitting at your dinner table, complaining about tangerine prices? And not everyone adjusts cleanly. Usopp wonders if his dream of being a brave warrior can survive when the world only cares about the god next to him. Frankie worries their ship isn't just a vessel anymore, but a symbol that will drag every government weapon to their door. Even Brooke, who jokes and sings, asks, "Can you really chase simple dreams when your navigator's very heartbeat is a revolution?" So the real question becomes, do the Straw Hats shape this god? Or does this god reshape the Straw Hats? Because the first time that tension finally explodes on deck, and someone dares to say, "Nami, you're too dangerous to sail with," that's when this entire timeline tilts again. Macro power shifts, Yonko, our revolutionaries, and the new balance of the seas. And the world doesn't ignore that crack in the Straw Hats' unity. It pounces on it. Because the moment Nami stops being just the navigator and starts looking like a rubber storm goddess on the verge of walking away, every major power on the sea rewrites their plans overnight. In the original timeline, Luffy's the chaos variable. In this timeline, Nami is the equation everyone's trying to solve. Let's dive into the most dangerous strategist of them all, Dragon. As Luffy's father, he was already watching his son as a symbol. But what if he sees Nami as the instrument, a woman who can turn a battlefield into a liberation festival? Thunder cheering, rain washing away blood, rubber banners snapping in the wind as she literally slingshots slaves out of chains. You see? Dragon isn't just about blowing up flags. He's about optics, about stories. A dancing, laughing, unpredictable weather deity who makes tyranny look ridiculous? That's revolutionary propaganda gold. Here's the kicker. That means the Revolutionary Army starts planning around Nami-specific operations. Raids timed to her storms, evacuations using her rubber constructs. Even Kuma's paw-paw teleport routes get redrawn around, where can we drop Nami to flip an island overnight? Suddenly, she's not just an ally. She's the hypothetical linchpin for toppling the celestial dragons. But the Yonko aren't just watching, they're hunting. Big Mom, with her soul-based climate homies, looks at Nami and sees the ultimate wedding gift to herself. In the original timeline, she wanted Lola's Vivre card and Zeus. In this timeline, she wants Nami, a living, a laughing weather engine who can fuse with Prometheus, Zeus, and Hera into some insane rubber storm chimera. Imagine Whole Cake Island with Nami chained to a tea table, forced to perform eternal festivals for Tatoland. Kaido, on the other hand, doesn't want to own her. He wants to break her. The strongest creature hears rumors of a human who can tank blunt force, bounce back from dragon strikes, and weaponize lightning like a Yonko-level thunder god. What better test than a sky-splitting clash of rubber thunder versus flame clouds over Onigashima? Meanwhile, the Marines go full panic mode. With Akainu as fleet admiral, the doctrine gets simple and terrifying. Any island that shelters Nami or her crew is a target for preemptive annihilation. Buster calls become storm denials. If Nami can turn oppressed ports into celebrations, Sakazuki's answer is to erase the port before the party starts. Collateral damage skyrockets. Neutral kingdoms get glassed just for letting a tangerine ship dock. That pressure cooker forces the Shichibukai to choose. Law sees a living chaos factor who can warp battlefields to suit his room. Hancock, already head over heels for Luffy, now sees Nami as the spark that could finally ignite the world-changing war she secretly wants him to win. In this timeline, their alliances form earlier, tighter, and with Nami's awakening as the unspoken trigger. Pattern interrupt. This isn't Luffy's era anymore, it's the Nami era. Every Yonko has a Nami plan. The Marines have Nami protocols. The revolutionaries have Nami roots. She's no longer just plotting sea currents, she's the gravitational center of the final war. And so when the first world government document quietly labels her not as Navigator Nami, but as potential Nika variant, weather type, that's the moment the endgame truly begins. What if Nami awakened earlier? Enies Lobby and Sabaody revisited, and that's just with Nami awakening in the late game. But what if the drums of liberation started echoing way earlier? What if the world met Nika Nami, not at the doorstep of the final war, but back at Enies Lobby or even Sabaody? Let's dive into Enies Lobby first. In the original timeline, the big symbolic moment is Luffy telling Sogeking to burn the world government flag. A declaration of war. Powerful, right? But in this timeline, as that flag catches fire and Robin screams that she wants to live, something else snaps. Nami's stress, her fear, her love for her crew. All of Arlong Park and Kokoyashi boiling over, and the sky itself laughs. Clouds twist into spirals of white and gold. Thunderheads stretch like rubber. The entire judicial island starts bouncing. Courthouse towers whip around like rubber masts. Sea trains slingshot off warped rails. And Nami is literally grabbing lightning like ropes, slamming it into CP9. You see, an Enies Lobby awakening turns that arc from a secret rescue mission into a live broadcast of a weather rubber god wrecking a government stronghold. Here's the kicker. The world government can't pretend anymore. In the original timeline, they quietly fear Gear 5 Luffy and try to control the narrative. But an early Nika Nami, warping an entire island while Spandam is still screaming orders, forces them to react instantly. Buster Call protocols get rewritten. Cypher Paul gets new orders. Capture or erase the Weather Nika. Assassination squads start training years earlier. Now jump to Sabaody. In the original timeline, Luffy's punch on Charlos is raw rage, a human moment. But what if, in this timeline, it's Nami who steps forward when a celestial dragon shoots at Kami? Her trauma with fishmen, her hatred for slavers, her new responsibility as the crew's strategic core. And then, she hits him. The auction house doesn't just explode. Reality bends. The floor turns into a trampoline. Bullets arc like rubber bands. Slave collars snap and fling off like broken springs. Grove 1 becomes a chaotic pinball machine where Marines can't even stand up straight. Pacifistas get launched across the archipelago. Kuma. He arrives to separate the crew in the original timeline. But now he physically can't get clean line of sight on anyone. Every paw shockwave ricochets off warped air and rubberized bubbles. So what changes? Everything. Earlier awakenings mean earlier global attention. Kizaru doesn't stroll in lazy. He brings full fleets and sea stone nets designed specifically for a rubber weather god. Shichibukai offers change, Doflamingo might try to recruit Nami. Dragon might move to protect her years before Marineford. And there's a brutal trade-off. An earlier Nika Nami saves slaves at Sabaody, crushes Eni's lobby harder, maybe even prevents the crew from ever being separated. But it also burns her candle faster, dragging the final war timetable forward before the world, or the Straw Hats, are ready for a full-scale Nika hunt. This is the power of timing. One shift, one earlier awakening, and the whole timeline tilts. Use that as a meta tool, ladies and gentlemen. If Eni's lobby Nika Nami already breaks the world, what other micro what-ifs are hiding in this story? And how wild does it get once we push her even further into the new world? The cost of power, Nami's body, mind, and the burden of being Nika. And here's where the fantasy of genius Nika Nami stops being clean wish fulfillment and starts getting ugly. Power has a price. Luffy pays it with reckless joy. Nami, in this timeline, pays it with interest, compound, and a detailed ledger of every cost. Physically, she weaponizes Nika in a way Luffy never does. He improvises. She optimizes. Gear 2? She doesn't just pump her legs. She calculates blood flow, stretch ratios, and wind resistance. Chaining microgear shifts with climatact boosts to squeeze out the exact maximum velocity she needs. It looks beautiful. It feels efficient. But what if that perfection is killing her? Overclocked joints grinding from constant snapback, capillaries scarring from repeated high-pressure surges, nerves fried from lightning-assisted rubber conduction. Luffy shrugs off damage with meat and naps. Nami wakes up with chronic pain at 25, and Chopper quietly writing notes about reduced lifespan. You see, that's the difference. In the original timeline, Luffy shortens his life, but he doesn't dwell on it. In this timeline, Nami knows. She runs the math. Every Gear 4 Storm Bomb combo over Dressrosa, every rubberized Jetstream slingshot across the New World, she can estimate the years shaved off. And she does it anyway. Or it's because the alternative is someone else dying. Mentally, that's where it really starts to crack. Imagine Eni's lobby, Marineford scale chaos, or a Yonko war. But instead of a happy-go-lucky rubber captain, you've got the world's smartest navigator trying to simulate every outcome in real time. She's calculating blast radii for thunderclouds, elastic ricochet paths for her limbs, shockwave pressure on nearby ships and civilians. What if she misjudges the wind by a single degree? That's a village erased, a ship sunk, a child she never meets gone. At night, the drums of liberation don't sound like freedom to her. They sound like artillery. She dreams in worst-case scenarios and wakes up replaying the frames where she was off by a fraction. Morally, the Nika title feels heavier on her shoulders than any tangerine cart ever did. Now Luffy can say, "I decided to punch that guy," and move on. Nami remembers the faces in every storm. When she turns the sky black over a marine fleet and the sea becomes a rubberized blender of waves and limbs, she asks herself, am I really a liberator, or just another natural disaster with better aim? When islands whisper about the storm god Nika, who arrives, laughs, and leaves wreckage behind, she keeps track of the collateral damage the way she once tracked Arlong's tribute. So how does she not break? That's where the crew steps in. And this is where it gets beautiful. Luffy, even without the fruit, is still Luffy. He's the one who tells her, straight up, that freedom includes the freedom to mess up, to choose, to not run the numbers every second. Robin sits with her under the Sunny's mast. You're sharing stories of kingdoms that collapsed under guilt and legends where Nika was remembered not for perfection, but for trying. Chopper is in the background, grinding. Seastone-resistant braces, circulation massages, custom medicines to keep her rubberized organs from failing. Frankie tweaks the Sunny's flight paths so Nami doesn't have to push her body as far. Zoro just trains harder, so she doesn't feel like she has to be the answer to everything. And through all of this, Kokoyashi never leaves her mind. In the original timeline, her dream was simple. Free one village, buy back one future. But what if the fruit drags her into something so much bigger that the scale itself becomes a wound? Now she's not just fighting for Kokoyasi, she's the symbol for entire nations, for Fishman Island, for slave camps and sky islands and revolutionaries who chant Nika's name without knowing the girl underneath. Every time she sees Nojiko's tattoo, she's reminded that she only ever wanted to fix one tiny corner of the world. And now the whole map is on her weather charts. So the question becomes, when the world demands a god, and her body and mind are splintering under the role, what does Nami choose next? Does she double down on being Nika? Or does she try to rewrite what Nika even means? Would Nami still chase treasure, greed, maps, and a god's dream? And here's where it gets dangerously fun. Even when the world calls her a god, Nami is still Nami. She doesn't stop loving money. She doesn't stop counting every single berry. If anything, the legend of Whether Nika just adds a service fee. In the original timeline, Nami already charged Luffy interest for borrowing money and took a cut from every treasure haul. But in this timeline, with Gum Gum powers and Nika hype, she weaponizes that reputation. She's haggling with liberated kingdoms over storm consultation fees, negotiating treasure splits with entire islands, and you see her eyes still turn into actual berry signs the moment someone opens a vault. She can punch a Yonko with a rubber thundercloud fist, and then send them an invoice for property damage. But what if that same greed now sits right next to a god's ability to redraw the world? Her dream was always to map the entire planet, to make the seas understandable and safe. Now she can literally stretch her arm across a horizon, feel pressure fronts like they're strings, and twist a current 5 degrees to the east just to see what happens to trade routes. She's not just charting the Grand Line anymore, she's editing it. Every map page is half observation, half patch notes for reality. Let's dive into the real conflict. What happens when a mountain of gold is sitting on one island and another island is begging for her storm to break a tyrant's blockade? Do you divert a hurricane to smash a marine fleet, or take the escort job from a shady broker who's paying an ancient treasure? You suddenly get scenes where Nami is running numbers in her head mid-battle, weighing projected profits against projected lives saved, and that's way scarier than Luffy just charging in. Here's the kicker. That tension can't stay simple forever. At Marineford, at Dressrosa, at some alternate Wano, she's going to see whole populations crushed because they don't have safe harbors, evacuation routes, or any way to predict the chaos she and the other gods are kicking up. That's when the treasure math changes. She starts hoarding gold, not to sit on it like a dragon, but to fund weather towers, emergency sea lanes, and underground ports for islands the world government wants erased. Treasure becomes a war chest for freedom. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, she never stops being the girl from Kokoyasi. The tattoos don't vanish. The fear of being powerless doesn't disappear just because her body can bounce cannonballs. All that greed? It was always about never being owned again. So in this timeline, her maps and her money are her way of putting the world on her terms. The question is, when that world finally pushes back, or does she cling tighter to her vault or to her dream of a map that belongs to everyone? Luffy without rubber. Does he still become the man who will be king? And that's where we swing back to the guy who was supposed to be the storm in the first place. If Nami is the one bending reality with rubber, what happens to the man who swore he'd be king of the pirates? In the original timeline, Luffy's rubber body is his safety net. He tanks bullets, bounces cannonballs, and throws himself into insanity because his fruit forgives a lot of mistakes. But in this timeline, there's no rubber to hide behind. Every punch hurts. Every misstep can kill him. So what does he do? He doubles down on everything else. You see, without those stretchy training wheels, Luffy is forced into hockey way earlier. And imagine pre-Grand Line Luffy already pushing observation just to keep up with Nami's absurd slingshot trajectories, learning to feel intent because he can't just face tank attacks anymore. Imagine him obsessing over armament after losing a clash with someone like Don Krieg or Arlong, not because he's weak, but because he refuses to let his body be the reason his friends die. But what if watching Nami's ultra-calculated fighting style also rubs off on him? Suddenly, Luffy's not just charging in, he's trusting her forecasts, baiting enemies into her storm traps, turning reckless idiot into reckless spearhead of a coordinated ambush. Here's the kicker. Even if Nami is the Nika vessel, Luffy's role as the emotional epicenter of the era doesn't vanish. It intensifies. He's the one who looks at this terrifying, laughing thunder goddess and says, "Yeah, follow her. It'll be fun." He becomes the guy who convinces people not to fear the storm, but to dance in it. Instead of embodying the cartoon freedom of a rubber god, he embodies the human freedom to believe in someone else so hard that you jump off the cliff with them. And that opens a wild divergence. In some branches of this timeline, Luffy is still the face of the crew, the captain whose name the world screams. In others, he steps half a step back, content to be the captain of the ship that carries Nami, the world changer. Think about it. What if Pirate King becomes less strongest man alive, and more the one who leads the crew that rewrote the sky? Would the world see them as a dual legend, the Storm Queen and the Sun Fool, sharing the crown in everything but paperwork? When their relationship evolves from captain and navigator into full-on co-conspirators against the world. Luffy charges too fast. Nami overcalculates. Together, they cancel each other's worst habits. He drags her out of analysis paralysis. She stops him from dying to the dumbest trap imaginable. And as they break into the Grand Line, that dynamic spreads. Zoro follows the idiot who never gives up. Robin follows the woman who literally redraws the map. So then you have to ask, in a world where a laugh can warp reality and a storm can free an entire sea, does the title Pirate King even matter anymore? Or is the real throne the ability to make everyone else feel free? Joy Boy, Laugh Tale, and the final map, Nami's role in the endgame. And that's exactly where the endgame question hits you in the face. If freedom itself is elastic now, but what does that mean for Joy Boy, Laugh Tale, and the One Piece when the world's rubber messiah is Nami? In the original timeline, Joy Boy is this half-mythic figure who promised liberation and then failed, leaving behind a poneglyph apology and a laughing island at the end of the world. But what if, in this timeline, the one who inherits that isn't a sun-drummed brawler, but a storm-calling navigator whose rubber body literally bends the weather? Suddenly, Nami isn't just chasing money or maps. She's walking straight into Joy Boy parallels. She was the girl who once drew charts for a tyrant. Now she's the woman who brings storms and laughter to the oppressed, finishing the job Joy Boy couldn't. Let's dive into Laugh Tale itself. Reaching it was already the ultimate navigation challenge. Currents, magnetic fields, insane weather. It's all stacked like a final exam from hell. But here's the kicker. In this timeline, Nami's not just reading the sea, she's rewriting it. She stretches her arm miles into a storm front, grounds lightning through her own rubber body, then slingshots the Sunny across killer currents she calculated down to the second. Laugh Tale stops being a place only Roger's mystery navigator could reach and becomes the one island literally designed for a rubber weather goddess to conquer. And while Luffy laughs and fights, Nami listens. Through Robin, she learns the hard lore, the ancient weapons, the sea level shifts, the idea that the entire ocean can be raised, lowered, or shattered. That's not just history, that's navigation data on a cosmic scale. You see, in the story, she's not a bystander while the chosen one decides. So she's the person who understands what a 10-meter sea rise does to every island, every current, every trade route. When Robin translates a poneglyph about Pluton or Poseidon, Nami is the one quietly running the numbers and realizing, if we use this wrong, half my map disappears. So what is the One Piece here? Not just treasure, but the toolkit to permanently edit the world's seas. Maybe it's tech from the ancient kingdom, blueprints for climate machines, or instructions to awaken Nika's power on a planetary level. And there, ladies and gentlemen, stands Nami. the only person alive who can both understand the map and physically bend the storm to match it. Then the final fork hits. Does she stabilize everything, flatten the Grand Line's insanity, calm the Red Line's currents, lock in a peaceful, unpredictable world so she can finally draw a complete, finished map? Or does she unleash one last glorious, calculated cataclysm, a rubber-fueled storm that drowns the old order, redraws every sea, and forces everyone to navigate new freedoms from scratch? What if the true Pirate King moment isn't a crown on Luffy's head, but Nami deciding which world everyone wakes up to when the waves finally settle? Alternate crews and rivals. What if Nami never met Luffy at all? But what if we yank the wheel even harder and ask a brutal question? What if Nami never met Luffy at all? No goofy rubber captain crashing into her life at Orangetown. No hat on her head at Arlong Park. Just a genius rubber navigator in a world that wants to buy, break, or brand her. In the original timeline, Nami's path bends the moment Luffy walks into her storm. In this timeline, he never does. Nami still gets the gum-gum fruit, still learns to turn her body into living rubber and the sky into a weapon, but she stays alone long enough to realize something terrifying. She doesn't need a captain. She can be one. So she quietly builds a tiny elite crew, the way a thief builds a perfect heist. A sniper who can shoot through storms she creates. A hacker like Shipwright who can hide entire vessels inside cloud banks. No grand flags, no loud declarations, just high-risk raids on marine vault ships, Yonko supply lines, and map archives the world government swore didn't exist. You see, this Nami treats the Grand Line like a bank to be robbed and a puzzle to be solved. She rubber slings herself between masts, uses her stretchy body as living rigging, and combines climate-tact science with Gomu Gomu physics to yank lightning down exactly where she wants it. She avoids Marineford-scale wars as long as she can, because war is noisy, and noisy gets you noticed by monsters. But what if the monsters notice anyway? Big Mom hears rumors of a weather witch whose body laughs off cannon fire and whose maps never lie. Instantly, Charlotte Linlin wants a new daughter. Under Big Mom's protection, Nami could command a weather fleet, rewriting sea currents around Whole Cake the way Cracker rewrote battlefields with biscuits. Or Shanks catches wind of a rubber navigator who keeps humiliating marine convoys. He doesn't need her power as much as he respects her will, so he offers protection, a loose alliance, and a quiet warning. The world won't let a power like hers stay neutral forever. And then, sooner or later, Luffy shows up. But now he's a rival captain, not her savior. Their visions of freedom clash instantly. Luffy wants simple joy. Eat, fight, laugh, sail. Nami wants controlled freedom, safe routes, calculated risks, no Arlongs ever again. Imagine them racing for the same poneglyph, her rubber storms trying to pin his ship down, while he just laughs and slingshots through tornadoes. Every clash becomes a debate written in lightning and punches. Is freedom chaos, or is it a map you draw yourself? Here's the kicker. The world government doesn't wait forever. In one darker branch, Cypher Paul tracks her down. Seastone chains neutralize her rubber body, and she's dragged into a secret facility. They don't kill her. They schedule her. Deploy the weather weapon. She's forced to generate superstorms over rebel islands, unfreeze escape routes, and erase pirate fleets on command. A living Buster Call forecast. The girl who wanted to map the world becomes the tool that erases it. That's where someone like Dragon enters the chat. Imagine the Revolutionary Army planning an entire operation not to topple a kingdom, but to liberate one navigator. Dragon's Wind versus Nami's enslaved storms. Sabo breaking her chains while she's still mid-typhoon. The sky itself rebelling as she realizes there are people willing to fight for her freedom the way she used to fight for everyone else's treasure. And suddenly, you feel how fragile the main story really was. In the original timeline, Nami meeting Luffy when she did is the butterfly wing that saves her from becoming a Yonko's prized asset, a rival emperor, or the Marine's ultimate weather cannon. And that one act of trust. taking his hand on that broken Arlong Park tower, might be the only reason the world gets a navigator of freedom instead of a broken instrument of control. So if this is what happens when Nami misses Luffy's ship, what happens in the timelines where Luffy never gets the gum-gum fruit either, and someone even worse does? Micro what-ifs, Rubber Nami in Dressrosa, Whole Cake, and Wano. So if this is what happens when Nami misses Luffy's ship, what happens when she actually rides it all the way into the New World as the rubber storm goddess of the crew? Because once you give Nami the gum-gum fruit, no major arc stays the same. Dressrosa, Whole Cake, Wano, even the Reverie itself, everything gets bent. Dressrosa first. In the original timeline, Doflamingo turns the entire island into his spiderweb, with strings on buildings, people, even the sky. But what if, in this timeline, Rubber Nami is already a walking weather engine? She doesn't just call down rain, she weaponizes atmospheric pressure. Imagine Doffy trying to anchor his threads when the air itself is pulsing, expanding, and contracting around him. Every time he tries to pull a string, Nami whips a rubberized thundercloud across the battlefield, making the environment so unstable that his precise manipulation keeps slipping. You see, his control needs structure. She erases structure. And here's the kicker. Dressrosa is an island built on the trauma of toys and stolen freedom. Nika's drumbeat is literally about liberation. So when Nami, the navigator of freedom, starts bending reality with that same ridiculous rubber logic, the toy's curse-breaking moment suddenly feels like it's echoing through her too, not just Luffy. Then Whole Cake Island turns into a meteorology nightmare. In the original timeline, Big Mom's homies, Zeus, Prometheus, Napoleon, dominate the sky. But what if Nami walks in as the rival weather deity? Her climatact channels heat, cold, and electricity through a rubber body that can stretch into the heart of any storm. Big Mom pours souls into the clouds to command them. Nami rewrites the temperature gradients those clouds depend on. So you get this insane tug-of-war where Zeus is literally being pulled between two masters, the Yonko, who owns his soul, and the rubber navigator who owns the sky's math. Lightning that should obey Big Mom suddenly curves toward Nami's trajectories. Prometheus swells to burn her, only for her to stretch, absorb the impact, and slingshot a compressed thunderball right back into his face. It stops being a simple escape arc and becomes a duel of wills over the atmosphere itself. And then Wano. Kaido's whole intimidation factor is that dragon form in the clouds, untouchable above the battlefield. But what if Nami can spawn localized typhoons on command? Every time Kaido takes off, she twists the jet streams, hurling him into his own storm. His King of the Sky routine gets undercut by a woman who can snap her fingers and turn his flight path into a pinball machine. Luffy still throws punches, sure, but Nami is the one yanking a Yonko out of the heavens. And when Onigashima starts falling, in the original timeline, a drop from that height is a death sentence for normal humans. In this timeline, Nami is rubber. She can bounce, ricochet, even act as a living shock absorber for allies she wraps in her arms, surviving crashes that should have ended her story. Pattern interrupt. Zoom out. What happens when the world government realizes there's a pirate who can do this on command? Even when Nami isn't at the Reverie, her name is. Kings and queens whisper about a navigator who can rewrite weather patterns around entire islands, who can turn buster calls into fog-choked disasters or erase famine with scheduled rain. She becomes a walking natural disaster on the threat charts, a geopolitical variable. So if late-game Nami is already warping Dressrosa, Whole Cake, Wano, and the Reverie just by existing, what happens in the timelines where someone even more ruthless than her gets that same fruit and the world's sun god power falls into truly villainous hands? Night emotional core, from Arlong's prisoner to the world's storm of freedom. And that's why we have to zoom back in, because before this fruit became a geopolitical nightmare, it belonged to a girl in a tangerine grove who couldn't even buy back her own home. You see, in the original timeline, Kokoyasi is where Nami breaks. The dirt road, the villager's betrayal, her stabbing Arlong's mark again and again, screaming through the tears. That was a kid trying to erase a brand the world carved into her. But what if that same girl, in this timeline, is the one who later laughs in the face of admirals at Marineford, her rubber body bouncing back cannon fire, while the drums of liberation echo over the bay? That contrast is the emotional core. Early Nami thinks freedom is math. 100 million berries, one village saved, debt erased. Our end of story. She'll steal from pirates, betray alliances, do whatever it takes, because the equation is simple. Money equals safety. Then Luffy walks into her life. Ace's execution shakes the world, Marineford explodes, and suddenly the numbers don't add up anymore. How do you buy freedom in a world that manufactures Arlongs on purpose? In this timeline, every step of her rubber evolution forces that question. When she whips her arm across Arlong Park like a slingshot storm and tears his flag from the sky, she isn't just freeing Kokoyasi. She's getting her first taste of what it means to break a system, not just pay it off. Later, when she's stretching across entire battlefields, redirecting Buster Call bombardments with elastic storm shields, she realizes true freedom means dismantling the factories that stamp out tyrants, not just rescuing their latest victims. But here's the kicker. The world wants a symbol, a sun god, a weapon. Nami just wants her family. Nojiko and Genzo are the anchor back to that muddy road, the ones who still see a stubborn, scared kid under all the bounty posters. Luffy and the crew? They're the idiots who treat her like Nami first, Nika second. Sanji still melts when she asks for food money. Usopp still panics when she demands interest. Even as everyone else whispers about a living legend, the Thousand Sunny stays home, and choice is everything. She didn't choose to be Nika's vessel in this what-if timeline. She didn't choose the prophecy, the rubber, or the drums. But she chooses when to turn the sky into a weapon. She chooses when to run from an unwinnable fight, when to double back for a single crying kid, or when to demand payment from kings who want miracles on credit. Every "I'll help you, eye for a price" is her refusing to be used again, setting terms with a world that once sold her for pocket change. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a power-scaling fantasy. It's a stress test on Nami's heart. What happens when you hand godlike power to someone who started with nothing but a pen, a dream, and a debt ledger soaked in blood? Does she become the storm that drowns the world, or the navigator who steers it out of slavery? Let's dive into how that answer reshapes Marineford itself. Because once this Nami steps onto that scaffolded ice, the entire war for Ace's life doesn't just change, it feels personal. Stitching the scenarios. How each divergence builds a new legend. So let's stitch this all together. Because this isn't 10 random Nami is cracked clips. This is one escalating legend. In the original timeline, Nami is a thief surviving under Arlong's thumb. In this timeline, the first fracture is brutal. She eats the gum-gum fruit while still in Arlong Park, turning herself into a rubber shield between her village and a monster who owns the sea. That one decision rewires everything. Under Arlong, Rubber Nami isn't charging in like Luffy. She's tanking beatings that would kill anyone else, stretching through corridors, stealing maps, and quietly testing how far her body can go without drawing attention. Survival first, liberation later. You see the pattern? Every arc from that point is Nami balancing those two instincts. Once the Straw Hats form around her, the Arlong Park showdown becomes our first big divergence point. In the original timeline, Luffy is the reckless liberator. But what if the one who snaps the saw sword with her bare rubber arm is Nami herself? She calculates the tides, the building stress on Arlong Park's pillars, and then uses her elasticity to literally rip his empire apart. Survival turns into liberation the moment she decides the math finally favors rebellion. Jump to Alabasta and Skypiea. Here's the kicker. Rubber plus weather science turns her into a battlefield architect. In Alabasta, She's slingshotting herself across rooftops, redirecting cannon fire, using her immunity to blunt force to intercept attacks meant for Vivi. In Skypiea, she's bouncing through the sky, turning lightning that should kill her into data she can feed into upgraded climate acts. Greed versus generosity? She still charges navigation fees, but she's also the one eating hits for villagers she'll never see again. At Enies lobby, the theme deepens. Calculation versus chaos. In the original timeline, Luffy charges the Tower of Justice. In this timeline, Nami is the rubber spear point, but every wild-looking move is pre-planned. She's ricocheting through Buster Call blasts on angles she mapped in her head, using her body as a living trajectory calculator so everyone else can advance. Now, some of you are wondering, which of these are mainline and which are wild side branches? The core timeline we've been tracking is Arlong Era Fruit, Straw Hat Still Form, Nami as rubber-centric vanguard. Side paths are things like her briefly becoming a solo East Blue warlord for hire, or a marine cartographer secretly feeding intel to Dragon. And those exist to show potential extremes, but the through line is always the same Nami. Cautious, brilliant, slowly accepting bigger burdens. By Sabaody and Marineford, that cause and effect is undeniable. Her fear of the world government makes her study bounties and marine patterns obsessively. So when Kizaru and the pacifistas arrive, she's the one predicting firing lines and bouncing allies out of instant death. At Marineford, she isn't just stretching to the scaffold. She's stretching the entire definition of Nika into something planned, not purely chaotic. And if this rubber navigator survives Marineford as a recognized Nika figure, Elbaf, the final war, even Mary Juaz itself suddenly become battlefields where weather, rubber, and rebellion fuse. But what if the girl who once sold maps to survive becomes the god who redraws the world's borders? We're not done with that question yet. What this changes about One Piece: themes, symbols, and the will of D. Because that's the wild thing here. Once Nami is Nika, the entire symbolic center of One Piece tilts. In the original timeline, Nika is a laughing brawler whose freedom is expressed through fists, food, and pure chaos. In this timeline, that same sun god power sits in the hands of a woman whose whole life was about planning, saving, and surviving. That instantly changes what power even looks like. You see, a carefree male brawler as god of liberation sends one message: freedom is wild, impulsive, unstoppable. But what if the avatar of freedom is a cautious female navigator who double-checks her charts before a storm? Suddenly, leadership isn't just charging ahead. It's reading the currents of oppression and steering people through them. Nami's rubber body plus her weather science turns liberation into a skill, not just a vibe, and that quietly rewrites how gender and strength are framed in this story. And then we hit the will of D. Luffy is still a D. He's still that storm of emotion, that walking declaration of "I'm gonna be free." But he's not the Nika vessel. Here's the kicker. That split lets the will of D become something even bigger than one mythical fruit. It becomes the will to argue with destiny itself. Luffy's D is the guy who supports the sun god, challenges the script, and even refuses the idea that only one person gets to be the symbol. Nami's Nika is the role the world assigns. Luffy's D is the refusal to let that role define everything. Freedom itself gets redefined. In the original timeline, freedom is Luffy punching through walls, ringing the bell at Skypiea, smashing Enies lobby, cracking Kaido's skull. In this timeline, Nami's freedom is navigation. She doesn't just break cages, she charts routes around them. Marineford becomes a map problem. Sabaody becomes a current problem. Even Mary Juaz is a weather pattern to disrupt. She weaponizes knowledge, climate, and terrain, turning the entire planet into an ocean you can learn, predict, and then use against your jailers. What if the strongest move isn't a punch, but a path? That's where the crew's symbolism explodes. The Straw Hats stop looking like passengers on Luffy's destiny ship and start reading like a constellation. Nami's mind, Luffy's heart. Robin's knowledge of the Void Century, Frankie's ships, Usopp's stories that turn fear into courage. Together, they're Joy Boy's promise, but spread across multiple people instead of one chosen hero. The prophecy doesn't point at a single name, it points at a crew. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where it circles back on canon. Because even in the original timeline, Nami is already the navigator of dreams and storms. She literally decides where the Pirate King sails. This what if just turns up the volume and says, what if the world noticed that? If the mapmaker is also the sun god, then every log pose, every detour, every risk becomes divine. So what happens when the world government realizes too late that the real threat was never just the captain's fist, but the girl quietly steering the ship? We still haven't seen the final storm that creates. If Nami ate the gum fruit, would you still sail with her? The final storm that creates. Because when you zoom out on this timeline, you see a whole different journey. A girl who started as Arlong's prisoner and his cartographer, drawing maps for a monster, suddenly becomes the rubber storm goddess who redraws the map of the entire era. From Kokoyasi's orange groves to the blood-soaked ice of Marineford, she doesn't just navigate seas, she navigates fate. In the original timeline, Arlong Park was where Nami broke down and begged for help. In this timeline, Arlong Park is where the sea itself seems to rebel. Rubber arms whipping through water, redirecting cannon fire, slingshotting herself between towers, turning that tattoo of slavery into a banner of war. And that's the first reversal. The day a terrified thief becomes the storm that drowns a tyrant. Then Sky Piea. In canon, Nami was the support, steering the waver while Luffy punched a god. But what if the god of rubber is the navigator herself? Lightning that should erase her instead bends around her, conducted, redirected, woven into massive thundernets across the sky. Enel reads her heart with mantra and hears only calculations. Wind speed, cloud density, discharge timing. A duel of weather and will, where she turns the sky into her personal climate-tacked playground. Enies Lobby becomes the next milestone, that burning flag moment. Now it hits twice as hard, a rubber hand stretching across the gap, torch in one grip, log pose in the other. Eyes declaring war on the world government, while literally connecting every straw hat on the tower behind her. She's not just saying, "I'll navigate you to the ends of the sea." She's saying, "I'll navigate you through hell, and I'll bend reality to do it." And then Marineford, the Nika awakening. The day the world realizes the most miraculous rubber human alive isn't a reckless captain, but the woman charting his route. Drums of liberation pounding as waves themselves bounce, shockwaves ricochet, and even admirals misjudge her angles. Here's the kicker. Every move is planned. Every miracle is math wrapped in myth. It sounds like pure power fantasy, right? Hyper-competent, rubber-wielding Nami styling on warlords and admirals. But power paints a target, a navigator who can't swim, a captain's right hand whose bounty spikes past Luffy's. Assassins in the dark, seastone traps, weather turned against her by people who finally study her patterns. The risk is constant. One misread current, one surprise Kizaru beam, and the entire voyage ends. Yet under all of that, it's still the same emotional map. A girl trying to buy freedom. A dream of drawing a complete world map with her own hands. A thief who had to trust a rubber captain with her life, now asking everyone else to trust a rubber navigator who terrifies the government. Luffy still jumps first, but now he lands where she tells him. Ace still represents the burning future, but Nami is the one plotting the route to reach it. So here's the question. Ladies and gentlemen, in this world, would you step onto the Thousand Sunny knowing your navigator is the most hunted miracle on the sea? Would you trust your life to the woman the world government calls Nika of the Navigators? Or would you watch that ship sail away and wonder what new map she's drawing without you? Charting your own what-ifs, like comment, and continue the voyage. Because that's the thing, right? Once you've seen Nami as Nika of the Navigators, you can't go back to pretending this is just Luffy's crazy rubber story anymore. This timeline is a whole new sea, and now it's your turn to start drawing lines on the map. So tell me in the comments, which moment do you think breaks the hardest once Nami is the rubber legend instead of Luffy? Arlong Park, where she's literally snapping buildings and fishmen instead of stabbing her own arm. Skypiea, where she's bouncing through the clouds like a living waver while calculating lightning strikes. As Marineford, where the world's greatest war suddenly has a rubber navigator threading through admirals like she's reading sea charts? Or some later arc we barely touched, like Dressrosa or Whole Cake, where her awakening turns entire battlefields into a weather-controlled rubber ocean? And don't just say Marineford and dip. Let's dive into the wild stuff. Drop your own techniques and gear names. What's her version of Gear 2 when she combines blood flow boosts with climate control? Gear Tempest? Gear Storm? How does she weaponize Awakening on Whole Cake Island, turning Big Mom's territory into a stretchy candy nightmare she can redirect with a single forecast? In the original timeline, Nami was already terrifying with just a Climatact and a forecast. But in this timeline, with Nika-level freedom, what's the most broken combo you can design for her? Here's the kicker. Your ideas can change the next videos. If you want more what-if timelines where the wrong person gets the right power, tell us which swap you want to see next. What if Zoro ate the gum-gum fruit and turned every sword style into rubber-based, hockey-bending insanity? What if Ace awakened at Marineford and the whole sky turned into blue plasma flames that even Akainu had to fear? What if Garp finally took off the gloves and the Marines had to face a hero who chose family over justice in front of the entire world? You see, a timeline like this is dense. There are tiny beats everywhere. Missed log poses, altered bounties, admirals filing different reports that you might not have caught the first time. So if there was a moment where you suddenly went, wait, that changes everything. Go back, rewatch that part, and then send this to a friend who still thinks Nami is just the money girl and not a walking world threat. Because if we're going to keep charting impossible maps and rewriting the grand line, we need a whole crew of navigators. So hit like if you enjoyed sailing through this what if. Drop your rubber Nami techniques, your favorite altered arc, and your craziest awakening ideas down below. Share this with your crew so everyone can argue over whose version of Nika Nami wins. And if you want to keep charting impossible maps and sailing into new what-ifs, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next island.